All right, everybody, welcome back to Remotely Wasted. This is our college football week 7 reaction. If you're just now joining us for the first time, I'm Nick. We got Jaden over there. We got a guest with us today, which I'll introduce in a minute. If you could like, comment, and subscribe. I hate to be that guy, but we're trying to grow a little bit, so that all that kind of stuff helps a little bit.
The usual garbage.
But yeah, this weekend was nuts. This weekend had everything. We had upsets. We had close games. Pretty much anything that could happen that would shake things up happened this weekend. But before we get started, we'll introduce our guest. I'll let you introduce yourself. And since we're kind of biased here, introduce your favorite teams as well.
Let's do it. I'm Sheldon. Me and Jaden were actually stationed together in Delaware for a while. That's how we know each other. I'm currently up in New Jersey, so I didn't move too far after I got back from overseas. I'm from North Carolina, so I'm a lifelong Duke Blue Devil fan, and yes, that includes football. Tried and true. I suffered through many winless seasons, but it's all been worth it. And also, I graduated from Liberty, so I am also a Liberty fan as well. So I pull for both of those teams, and it's fun. So glad to be here.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought you was going to Edinburgh or some shit.
No, I am. I'm doing dual master's programs, one at Louisville and one at Edinburgh. So I'm almost done with Edinburgh, and Louisville I'm 3 classes in. So
see, there we go. I knew it was something. I was like, somebody I know is going to that fucking school.
He's paying attention.
Stalking the old social media.
That's right.
Somebody's got to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, I guess we'll run through the top.
Let's start with the people that didn't make it. Let's see if there's anybody down there that should be in there. I don't think there is.
No, so I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I mean, you can almost make this thing a top 20. Like, I was trying to make every argument possible for North Carolina not being in, NC State not being in, and then you look at what's under there, and there's not much to choose from. So I think they probably got it right for now.
Hey, we got 1 vote. At 3 losses, we got somebody's pulling for it. That's me. That's my
Liberty
vote.
got 2 votes. Liberty got 2 votes.
There we go. Man, Tulane's fucking hot this year, surprisingly.
Yeah, Tulane's record makes K-State's loss against them look a lot better now. K-State looks a lot more legit after that.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, they beat somebody, but I couldn't remember who it was off the top of my head. Yeah, it was K-State.
It also makes Tulane's loss to Southern Miss pretty baffling because, Southern Miss isn't bad. They're a 500 team. But, with who Tulane has beaten and how they've beaten teams, it's kind of surprising that they lost that game.
I think Mississippi State's better than this 2 losses that they got. Mississippi State's good.
They got a chance to prove themselves. They're playing Bama this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they'll beat Bama. I don't think they're that good, but they're playing like miles better than what they usually are. I would probably have them over NC State here.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably
Cincinnati's trash.
Yeah, I would slide North Carolina up and then move Mississippi State up. So like North Carolina here at 21, Mississippi State here, and then NC State, Cincy, Tulane. You can whatever order you want to put them in.
Yeah, this isn't your Cincy team of the last few years. They last week had a barn burner with South Florida, who is 1-31 in their last 32 games against the FBS team. So
yeah, they've been getting into some weird shootouts with some weird teams. Like
they have.
They barely beat Tulsa, South Florida. I mean, everybody else they kind of handled their business. They almost beat Arkansas, but Arkansas is terrible this year. I don't know
what to think about Arkansas. They just went this week and torched BYU in Provo, so it's like that's a good win, but they don't. The previous weeks they haven't looked that great. So
they got a lot of offensive talent. I feel like they got a really good quarterback. They got a really good running back. They got a Hazelwood at receiver, but their defense doesn't seem to hold up, especially when they're playing, really solid teams.
Sure.
I was high on Arkansas. I think was it KJ Jefferson, their QB?
He's rumored to be like a top 15 pick in the draft.
I was like wanting them to beat Bama when they played. It was 4 weeks ago. I was like, this is it. This is it. Fuck, absolutely not. Because that was when Bryce Young got here. I'm pretty sure it was against Arkansas.
Yeah, and they still kind of rolled over him.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe comes in and was like, "See ya. I want to run all over you."
Yep.
And then, unfortunate. Rest in peace, Arkansas season.
I don't with everything that's happened with injuries, I don't necessarily think NC State really belongs, but I mean, who else are you going to put in there, right? I believe they lost their quarterback for the season or
Devin Leary, he's got a torn pec.
We had nine points, I think, against Syracuse on Saturday. So
Yeah.
We killed that man. He got smacked hard, and then they still beat us. But anyways, Texas. What do you guys think about Texas?
Texas is
looks
such a
good,
weird
man.
team. They're a weird team though. Like they struggled against Iowa State, but they've had periods where they look really dominant against OU.
Yeah.
They took Bama on before Ewers went out. This Iowa State game is a little of a question mark for me. I'm kind of curious to see how they play against Oklahoma State this next weekend. It's a really good team.
It is. Iowa State's like a gatekeeper for the Big 12. Like, I think it's hard to like judge any team off of how they play against Iowa State because
that's a trap team for sure.
It doesn't matter if they're like 4-7 or like 7-4. Like they're gonna play teams tough every year. It's just they're that type of team.
They always be ruining people's seasons, like OSU's undefeated season when they had that catastrophe. Like I think it was a bus crash or something like that.
It was a plane crash. Like a few coaches died, I think. And then, Iowa State beat them that night.
Ruined their
season. Iowa over before too.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Iowa State's like, I would not want to play Iowa State on like a Friday night.
Nah, definitely not.
That's a team you don't want to catch in a dark alley. They'll get you. Man, Kentucky too.
Injuries, man.
Yeah.
Will Levis, he's played every game. I know he had that dislocated finger.
Well, he was gone in the it was like last week's game.
South Carolina game.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they struggled mightily in that game for sure. South Carolina is another team that's looked improved lately. I mean, it's hard to say how much so with who they played in the circumstances, but I mean they're winning football now. So
yeah, we had South Carolina's coach on our hot seat for a few weeks.
Yeah, hey, I mean
Shane Beamer.
I think he's pulled himself off though.
Yeah, I think so too.
We was dogging on Spencer Rattler for I don't know the first 4 weeks I think it was.
That's the kind of school though, like being in the SEC where it's like you can get away. Like if you win 9 games, like 8 or 9 games every year, you can pretty much stay there. Like you're not going to be on the hot seat for that, but can you get to that point consistently? That's the question. So
yeah, on those like bottom level teams, it's too hard.
Yeah.
And when you're going up against these other top SEC teams for recruiting, in-state as well, like I mean, it's just not feasible right now. Yeah. I mean, luckily the transfer portal is kind of opened up recruiting in a completely different way. Recruiting is not even a big deal anymore. It's
like free agency, basically, is what the transfer portal is. It's nuts. Great. I mean, he's a great recruiter. I mean, like, as far as the transfer portal stuff goes, because, I mean, Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner were really big pickups in the offseason. For him to pull off, like, a lot of teams were fighting for Spencer Rattler as their quarterback. He hasn't really played too well, but, I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out.
I mean, he was recruited to OU for a reason, right? He struggled there. He had a lot of problems, but I mean, there's talent there. So it's just him all putting it together in the right situation.
It's really his mentality, I think, is the question mark at this point. He has all the physical attributes.
I agree.
Yeah, his confidence is broken. I don't know, maybe he's getting it back as the season's going in. He's not as pressured to like win now compared to like being at OU. Like you start at OU, you have to win.
Yeah,
you have to win. You have to be competing for the Big 12 championship every year, and then let alone trying to make the playoffs. So that's a big jump for a starter in your first year on that team, and then going to South Carolina is a little. I don't think it's easy. It's not even easier. It's probably
takes pressure off, though. I think
it's not as big of a school for sure.
Sure. I think the most interesting thing about the transfer portal before we move on is like the impact that it's had on some of the group of 6 teams, right? In particular. So a lot of these guys that aren't finding success at your Auburns and your Alabamas and your Ole Misses, they're transferring to some of these smaller like Sun Belt schools, some of these Conference USA schools. And I think that's kind of how we can see the parity that's evolved over the last few years in football. You see some of these teams, competing with these big time teams. And I think that's wise because they're getting a lot of quality transfers at these schools.
Yeah, I'm for it. I love it. Probably the best thing to happen in college football.
It makes things so much more interesting.
It does.
Probably since the inception of the playoffs, and then now they're expanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois.
That's a good team. Bro. That's a good
team. The best defenses in the country.
Oh man.
They're killing it. I honestly think they could be ranked a little higher. I mean, they hadn't really played nobody of note yet. I mean, Minnesota was good before the season started. You know, they were supposed to have been doing good. They were ranked at one point. Wisconsin was ranked, I think, in the middle of the pack of the beginning of the year. Get blown out by Ohio State. That's a close loss to Indiana. So I mean, they arguably could be undefeated right now.
Sure.
And I think they could potentially win out. I'm not saying they'll beat Michigan, but it's very feasible. At Nebraska, Nebraska's ass right now. Michigan State's ass. Purdue's ass.
Yeah.
Northwestern's ass. So they can win all of those games. And
are they in the opposite division of Michigan and Ohio State? Like, could they be in the Big Ten championship? I don't know the Big Ten like that.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I believe they are, but I'm not sure. I don't think they're in the same division as Ohio State, but I might be way off base on that. I don't know. That's just.
I think the East is the one that's bad.
Yeah, Illinois is one of those like really obscure Power 5 teams, like across all of athletics, right? So like when you think about like teams that are successful in all sports, there's certain teams that comes to mind, but then there's like Illinois. Like, what are they really known for? Like in the 80s, they were really good at basketball. They've had a couple years here and there. Never really been super strong at football. So that's one of those teams that kind of gets lost in the shuffle as far as the major conferences are concerned.
Yeah,
I think they've had very few good years.
Sure.
I think their other priorities are more so like, field hockey and swimming and fucking wrestling and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Wrestling for sure.
Lacrosse, soccer. I know I don't know anything about Illinois, but I'm just guessing. Just guessing. Underwater basket weaving.
Oh yeah, that's a big one there. I've heard Champaign. They're all about their underwater basket weaving.
Hey, they find them a lake and then they get after it.
That's right.
K-State. This is where it starts to, I think from Illinois up is when it starts to get real good. There's like this little range here. You can kind of argue some placement for some teams. Penn State, fraud.
I don't know what to think about Penn State, man. I'm going to be honest.
I said they were a fraud before the Michigan game. I was proven right. I was proven right on a lot of things on the last episode.
Before we move on, Jaden guaranteed Tennessee would beat Alabama. I guaranteed
three weeks ago.
USC, so we got two guarantees right there.
Nice job.
That came true.
I knew it. I knew it was gonna happen. Tennessee's too good, but
I bet you were both sweating bullets. Both those games came down right to the wire, man. Like,
oh yeah, and I hate USC obviously because of the whole Lincoln Riley thing. So I was just like on the edge of my seat that whole game.
That's vindication for you, big time.
100%.
I think Brent Venables will do a really good job there. I think it's just, you know how it is. It takes time to build a culture, and unfortunately, a school like that, there's not a lot of patience involved. But I really hope he has time to kind of get his guys in there and build his culture, because I think it's going to prove, positive in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we've discussed this on the show before, that I think every coach should get, like, unless it's extreme, like they're going like winning 1 to 2 games, they should get like 4 to 5 years to get the right personnel in and build it up the way they need to build it up.
Sure. Well, I mean, usually they sign them to those 4 to 5 year contracts, and then they take the pay risk to fire them, and then now they have to pay them for God knows how long. Like, for example, if A&M wanted to fire Jimbo, and now they got to pay him for like 6 more years at millions of dollars. So it's a risk you got to take. Signing them to these multi-year contracts. But yeah, at the minimum, I think it should be at least a 4-year deal, whatever you're willing to sacrifice on the pay for them if they don't work out. But I think at least give them the 3 out of the 4 years to see what they're trying to do. If they're not really working out on the recruiting scale, maybe hire somebody to come in and recruit for you. You don't gotta fire the fucking head coach. Like, Find what they're lacking in. Is the team
special teams, defense? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hire a new defensive coordinator. See if that works for a year. You know what I mean?
Football's so intricate. There's so many coaches. There's running back coaches. There's quarterback coaches. There's all kind of coaches.
Yeah.
It's not like basketball where you can really lay the blame on a certain guy. Some basketball coaches like John Calipari, not necessarily an X's and O's guy. Great recruiter, right? So if they start losing, he's going to get the majority of the blame. But football is so intricate. Like, there's so many reasons you could be losing. So.
You got assistant offensive coordinators. There's assistants to all the other coordinators. Like, it's like, who's to blame here? Are we gonna just clean shop? Like,
right?
It's insane.
Well, I mean, it's crazy how big of an impact some of those guys actually have. Like, if you look at OU, Cale Gundy was on the offensive staff for I don't even know how many years, 10 plus years. He gets fired. for a poor word choice in a meeting, and I'm
Way to
not
go
saying
out.
that's the whole reason the offense hasn't like looked best this year, but I think that plays a factor when he's like a wide receiver coach for a lot of years.
It's
Sure.
a big hole to fill after someone's
It is.
built it for that long. All right, let's do. We'll go 10 to 15. So we already kind of touched on Penn State. Well, how about the K-State? What do you guys think about K-State? K-State's interesting.
I don't know, man. It's hard to say. I mean, they look good, but then
I like them.
lost to Tulane, so I don't know.
They
I
play TCU this weekend. I think that'll answer a lot of questions.
The big gauge.
And then they got OSU, Texas, Baylor.
Yeah, we'll find out what they're made of.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams.
OSU is good, but I think they were playing with fire the last few weeks, and it finally caught up to them. You know, they started really strong Saturday, like really strong.
Close it out.
Yeah, they couldn't close it out, man. It looks like I don't know what to think about Mike Gundy. He's one of the most likable coaches in the history of sports. He's got the mullet going. You know, he's known for his tirade about being 40 and everything. Great personality, but it's like he just can't get them there, man. You know, they'll start strong and then it all falls apart. So I don't know.
You think if he went to a different school, he'd have success?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, you know, when you're recruiting head to head with OU and like Texas and all the Texas schools, I mean, you know, it's tough. You know, I mean, who wants to go to Stillwater? It sounds terrible.
Hey, Stillwater's nice, all right. Stillwater's okay. Their field and like stadium is crazy nice.
Yeah.
And you know they got wrestling.
You know, I'll say this: they do got wrestling, big time got wrestling. I'll say this: like, I went to training down in Texas back in October for PLMC. You know what I'm talking about, and went up to Oklahoma and went to like this. It was outside of Oklahoma City. It was like this country western like museum, and it was the single most impressive museum I have ever been to. And you know me, I'm like a history guy. I'm a museum guy.
Yeah.
Dude, I was there 4 hours and didn't see a third of it. It was so
really
impressive. Just random. So I'll give
awesome.
Oklahoma that. Great museum.
That's awesome. I don't know. I really do like Mike Gundy as well. You think they would let go of him? It's like
No.
they do so well every year. They compete for a Big 12 championship almost every year, but it's
he
like
does just enough every year to not get fired, but he doesn't do enough to get them to the championship. But you got to look at where OSU was before Mike Gundy. They were garbage, and then he's made them legit. Now I'm just kind of like, do they want to take the next step and get somebody that could get them there? Probably not. I don't see them doing that.
I think also losing, I think his name's, I don't know, Knowles. I think his name's Jeff Knowles, the defensive coordinator. He went with Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge loss for Oklahoma State. I think if he wouldn't have left, their defense would be really done well this year. That's a poor choice of words. They would be doing way more than they are now, I think, in my opinion.
I question some of their offensive schemes too, because like I said, they started really strong Saturday. It looked like they kind of had some stuff going, and then as they moved on later in the game, there was like some trick plays, and it's kind of like they're pulling out all the stops to try to stay undefeated. It just, I don't know. It seems like there wasn't a good, well-rounded offensive plan there. And you know, I don't know if that's down to talent or lack of preparation or what.
They was up like 30-7, like
it was
at some point. And then I got home and my wife was talking to her grandparents, they're OSU fans.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, they're about to go to OT right now. I like almost broke my neck. I was like, are you joking? I was like, there's no way.
What happened?
Exactly. So it's just, and then that Central Michigan game, I think it was second week of the year, same thing happened. They was up big and then they gave up like 40 points in the second half or something crazy.
Stand by, boys. I'm going to break the seal. I want to be the first one to break the seal.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, there's something about the OSU defense that's just a little off to me this year. Like, you could definitely tell they lost something when they lost that coordinator. But one thing I'll say about this top 14, we're moving on to like 10. Top 10. But from 14 up, I could see any of those teams winning the championship. Not winning the championship, but making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Utah's really drove the nail in their coffin, losing to Penn State. I mean, they could make it. They're gonna have to beat, they have to beat somebody. I don't remember what their schedule is looking like. They're gonna have to beat Ohio State, and
that's not gonna happen. I mean,
They
like if we're
have-
being realistic.
they have to win out. If they beat Ohio State and win out, they're 100% in there. And then K-State has a good chance. They gotta win out. But that Tulane loss does not look good for them. Utah's done for. Syracuse undefeated? Question mark? Weird. It's very weird.
If Syracuse wins out,
they're
come on, they're in the playoffs for sure.
1000%. They'd be the ACC
if they went out for sure, because I mean, they're gonna have to beat Clemson at some point. But
they play Clemson this weekend.
They do, yeah, and I think it's in Death Valley. Oh, or is it? No, it's in Syracuse. It actually is in Syracuse, isn't it?
It's in Death Valley.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, they're screwed.
It's at 11. It's at 11 though. Those games kind of catch some teams sometimes.
I don't know. I think they have I think they got a shot. Yeah, they got a shot. After seeing Clemson play us and knowing like, okay, I think we are way better than we are. So I'm a little biased, and I've seen a little bit of why we're not undefeated, but Clemson, like, they look good, but they weren't like their defense is not as good as everybody's saying they are. Like everybody, the commentators, like this is like the arguably the top defense in the country, and I'm like, absolutely not. Their offense is really it's DJ and Will Shipley, and that's it. If you can
Will
stop
Shipley's
the run,
a hell of a player.
if you can stop the run, I think you can stop Clemson. So I don't know what Syracuse's defense looks like, but if you can stop Will Shipley, that's it.
I agree.
And you can score, obviously.
Are you guys Dabo fans? Like I can't think of a cooler, more entertaining person I'd like to play for. I mean, the dude just gets me fired up watching him.
I respect Dabo.
You probably hate him. I mean,
I don't hate him. I hate the team. I don't hate Dabo. He's built something there. Like you can do nothing but respect. He's for his team. Like he's for his players. Like he actually cares about his individual players, not just the team as a whole. And he's built Clemson up into a powerhouse in college football, which is crazy compared to what they were before.
Oh yeah. Let me ask you a question here. Let me see your thoughts on this. Do you think when Saban hangs it up that Dabo's the first call? Do you think he takes it, or do you think he stays with the team that he built up?
I don't think he takes it, but I think they'll call him.
Yeah, I think he could be the first call. Like kind of looking through, other than maybe like Lane Kiffin, just because he was at Alabama, I can't really think of anybody else that would be first call over Dabo.
He's the second call. I think they're going to call Kirby Smart first.
You think so?
Yeah, to Georgia. He's been there before.
Yeah. Well, Dabo, he's an alumnus. He won a 1992 national title at Alabama as a wide receiver. So I think they'll be the first two for sure.
Yeah. I don't think he goes, because with Alabama out of the way, like, are you gonna just win your conference and then you're in the playoffs? And
you're right.
Who really do you got to really consistently worry about?
You're right.
Ohio State.
You think if he does go though, like you think it adds to his legacy that not only has he won titles at Clemson, but now he's done it at Alabama and Clemson. But I mean, with his coaching acumen, like he should be able to win at Alabama with all the resaurces they have. So I don't know.
And the team would hypothetically be the same for the next 2 years after he moves over there. It would be Saban's team that he had brought in.
Sure.
Unless he leaves them high and dry like fucking Jimbo Fisher did to us, which I can't see him doing. So I don't know. I don't think he goes. I think he likes Clemson too much. He likes the culture, the environment, the stadium, the little running down the hill garbage that they do.
Touching the tiger and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the big old rock.
That's what it is, the rock. Yeah, they rub the rock.
Yeah.
I mean, once you build up a program on your own like that, it's hard to just go to a different program. Like you look at a guy like Bob Stoops at Oklahoma, he had plenty of offers to Florida and different schools along the ways. But I mean, once you build up your own program like that, it's hard for guys to leave. I don't see Dabo leaving. I don't even see Kirby leaving Georgia after, finally winning a championship.
Yeah,
I don't know who they would get, honestly. Lane probably would leave. I feel like Lane would ditch Ole Miss for Alabama.
If Kirby Smart left Georgia for Alabama, they would crucify him. They would find him in the streets. He would have to call like some Secret Service to come evacuate him out of there. They
would POTUS mission, bro. Like Secret Service.
100%. They would not be happy. I would be livid if I was in that situation and my coach left for a rival school in the same conference. I'd be like, you got to be joking. I would lose all respect for that person. Yeah. So I don't think Kirby or Dabo leave.
Who in that 10? Are we still in the 10 to 15 range? Is that what we're talking about right now?
Yeah. We was kind of talking about Syracuse, and then that's where we left off. What do you think about the Wake Forest slow mesh offense? It is absolutely infuriating, and I can't say it enough. I absolutely hate it. It is almost impossible to defend against with Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman's one of the best quarterbacks in the world. I mean, he's
that dude is an NFL quarterback playing in college.
Absolutely.
He's like 40, but he's
Can
not.
we talk about how handsome he is too? Like, so I went to the Liberty Wake Forest game when I was home last month. And the dude is a stud, man. Like he's probably
24.
He's plowing his way through Winston-Salem, North Carolina at a record pace.
100%. He's younger than I am, and I'm like, this dude looks like he's like he could be in his 30s to 40s. Like the dude, he's a grown ass man playing college football, and it's infuriating.
Yep.
He's fun to watch. He really is.
They probably should have beat Clemson. I've said this before. That was a bad decision that he made to throw it into double coverage in the end zone for no reason when all they needed was like 4 yards for the first down. So they arguably could be 6-0 and probably in the top 5. I think they still
talk about the Liberty Wake Forest game though, where if Liberty doesn't go for it, they kick the field goal and force overtime. But Hugh Freeze has got massive nuts, man. Like sometimes it's not a good thing, but he's got huge balls. I'll give him that. Saturday, I'll get to that later. But Saturday was just, I mean, I was about to burn my house down Saturday. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, it turned almost into a catastrophic weekend for me until the Giants were able to pull back our win. I was almost in the same boat.
I'm a Braves fan, so I mean, it was across multiple sports for me on Saturday. It was terrible.
Yeah, understandable. USC finally lost. Yeah. We kind of seen that one coming. Their defense is not good. They get into shootouts almost like you would expect them when they play a good team. It's gonna be a shootout. They're not stopping a good offense. So
no.
With the one loss, they have a chance to make the playoffs, but I don't see it.
I'll say this about like the teams with one loss right now. We had 3 like big teams like lose. It was Alabama, Oklahoma State, USC. I think all of those teams are still alive.
Oh yeah,
as far as the playoffs goes.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. They just gotta go ahead.
Who do you think's the biggest pretender in like the 10 to 15 range? Like who's the one team that doesn't belong?
Oh, 10 to 15?
Yeah.
10 to 15. Oregon.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. Who do they have coming up?
UCLA. That's going to be a hell of a game.
And they're going to lose. Unless Bo Nix just goes absolutely nuts. And if they could stop the QB run, I think they can stop Bo Nix. That's like his big thing is his running capabilities. He's a good passer. He is, but that's
it's
like
still
his
weird.
thing.
It's still weird for me that he's there. Like he just
it doesn't make sense.
Even his name, like a name like Stetson Bennett, like that's just a Southern.
That's a Georgia name.
Yeah, it is. Like Bo Nix. Like you're not at Oregon. What are you doing?
Yeah,
it's just weird.
You should strange. Be at, Florida, South Carolina.
Don't if you don't have a last name as your first name, like what are you doing, man? That's what they do in the SEC. The quarterbacks have last names as first name.
So Oregon is the pretender there. I don't see them beating UCLA this week. UCLA beating 10 Oregon is just probably going to bump them up probably to 7. I don't see them going any higher.
I'm gonna say Oregon, and then 1B is gonna be Syracuse for me, just because as a fellow ACC guy, I feel like their schedule is backloaded. It's not front loaded. It's backloaded, and it's about to get real tough for them. So I'll be interested to see. I still think they're like a 10-3 team. I mean, it's just we'll see how they handle the second half of the schedule. So
yeah, that's understandable for sure. Oh, that OSU loss. Sad. That was after FSU shit the bed on the season. I was like, all right, who am I going to root for this year? And it was Oklahoma State and Utah.
Yeah.
Utah really just shot themselves in the foot, and then OSU just can't pull it out. So they're I don't know.
You want new blood in the mix. You want new blood in the mix. You don't want to see the same 4 teams every time. So I'm super excited to see Tennessee doing well. Will it last? I don't know, but it's exciting for now.
I don't see how it won't. So we'll transition to 10 to 1.
Sure.
All right. We'll keep on that pretender talk. We'll take Oregon out. We'll do 9 to 1. Pretender 9 to 1. What do you got?
Ole Miss.
Oh, big time, dude. I'm so glad we're on agreement with that because like they're frauds,
so?
absolute frauds,
Who do they got? Let's check their schedule.
frauds.
All right. Beat Troy by 18, blowout. Barely beat Tulsa, barely beat Kentucky, blowout. Kind of barely beat Auburn. I think they'll beat LSU. They'll beat A&M.
You know what? I'm actually that was. We'll get to it later. That's my pick of the week. I have LSU winning that game. I think that they showed me something in the swamp. I know the game before that they got the doors blown off. They showed me something in Florida on Saturday, and I really think they're going to beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, Ole
Okay.
Miss's offense is fantastic, and they have the ability to turn it on in the second half of games. But I don't know, man. Like I don't think their defense is up to task. We'll see,
they're
though.
also at LSU. That's a terrible place to play. That place is hostile. It's probably
Oh, dude.
it's probably top 5 like hardest places to play in college football.
You got like 20,000 people yelling things you can't understand. Get in that pot right here. Like you don't even know what they're saying.
Dude from the Water Boy.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I think so we went to the OU game this past weekend, right? And we had this dude sitting behind us. He sounded just like that guy from the Water Boy.
Really?
I don't need one. Yeah,
He was like a coordinator or something. Yeah.
He was like yelling like stuff, and then I was like, "What is this dude saying?"
Was he from Oklahoma or Kansas? Who was he with?
He was with
He was
OU.
rooting.
Was he?
He was rooting for OU, but
Yeah, because somebody would be like Boomer, and he'd be like Sonar.
Those fans are they're terrible fans. Terrible fans. There was this guy sitting at.
How far of a drive is that for you from McConnell to Norman?
So I had to drive an hour and 20 to Ponca, where he's at, and then it was another 2 hours from Ponca to Norman. Oh, 2 hours. We missed like the first couple minutes of the first quarter.
You know what though? In the grand scheme of the Midwest and how like massive the states are, 3 hours, 3.5 hours isn't bad. That's not bad at all.
Not at all. Absolutely not. Because we was talking about going to Lawrence for the Kansas TCU game last week for College Game Day. And I was like, when else are you going to be in the same state as College Game Day?
Sure.
Two underdog teams at College Game Day, Kansas Cinderella season, and I just I completely forgot about it.
Did you guys are you vet tixing it up, or are you actually like buying tickets to the game? Like, what are you doing?
No, the tickets we got for the OU game was $40, and we had pretty good seats.
Dude, that's great. That's fantastic.
Not vet tix.
Wow.
And then
the prices went down after OU got blown out by Texas, and I was like, I'm taking advantage of this.
Perfect.
Yeah, because he went to the OU K-State game, and those same seats were like $250.
Oh wow. So yeah, that's the positive of being a Duke and a Liberty fan. Like I remember when I was in high school, like my junior year, we beat Duke beat Georgia Tech 41-17, and it was their first ACC win in 3 years. At that time, you could just show up, and they're just like, oh, they're just happy that you came. Like they're
just go right on in.
Come on in,
buy some food, please.
Yes, Chick-fil-A, Cookout, Bojangles, whatever you want, man.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that was my first college football game. It was dope.
Was it really?
Yeah, I'm sad it wasn't an FSU game, but I've never had the opportunity to be able to go. Growing up poor and whatnot, and then joining the military, we're all over the place. So,
do you have a like the American Express or Visa? The military gives you like the Sky Miles card where you can get free flights. You guys have the card?
I don't know.
You gotta get it, man. You're making a mistake. Like I'm saying, like at some point,
send me the details.
I'll send you the details, man. We can meet there. I'm fully willing to go to an FSU. You know what? I'll make it worth your money.
We're going next year.
FSU Duke in Tallahassee. We'll go. We'll do it.
Yeah, we're going next year.
I don't know if they play next year. We're just assuming.
I think we have Miami at home next year.
Yeah, let's go to that. Come on.
Because we had Clemson at home, we got Florida at home, and I think we got Miami on the road, and then it flips. Sure. So Miami's the only rival team we got at home that I would want to go watch us beat the doors off of. So we're gonna probably fly out, get an Airbnb, stay for a couple of days.
Let's do it, man. I'm super down.
Yeah. Nick's going. I'm gonna get my dad to go. So yeah, it'll be a good time.
I tell you about this insane like hardcore deployment that I'm catching in January.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to Qatar, which in the grand scheme of deployed locations isn't bad at all. I got diverted last week. I'm actually going to South Carolina now. I'm deploying to South Carolina. So yeah, man. Anytime you guys want to go to games, just come on to South Carolina. We'll haul it on down there.
Out there fighting some rednecks.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody's got to stop them.
That's right.
Okay. All right, so we got the Fraud, Ole Miss, the top 9. Any of these teams surprise you guys? I think
Dude,
UCLA's the biggest surprise, 100%. After what they've been doing for the last God knows how long.
Since probably like 2014, 2015-ish, they haven't been good, and now they're just out the woodwork.
Finally doing it.
Are you surprised though? He's a quality college coach, and let's be honest, man. Like the Eagles literally won a Super Bowl right after they fired him. He was the GM and the coach. He built that team, man. Like he's a great coach. Like I think he could be like Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll, his first go around in the NFL, he sucked, came back, got a good squad, won with the Seahawks. Right now, he's still in the NFL. Like I think Chip Kelly's smarter than people give him credit for. I think it was only a matter of time before he got UCLA turned around. And I'll be honest with you, I think that top 4 is pretty locked in as far as what they've done, and they're undefeated. But UCLA is my strong 5th, and TCU is my strong 6th, and I think those two are interchangeable. Obviously, do I think that TCU would beat Alabama right now? I don't know, probably not. But based off of how many ranked teams both of them have beat so far, I think they're 5 and 6.
Yeah, I agree on the UCLA front, or with the Chip Kelly front. I'm a little surprised it took him this long. He's been there, I don't know,
like 3-4 years, something like that.
Yeah,
I feel like it's been a little longer than that.
I mean, they fired Jim Moore probably like 2017-ish, 2018-ish. So yeah,
you guys know where Jim Moore is at now?
UConn. I saw
UConn, yeah, very good. I'm going to UConn in November to watch them play Liberty, man. Fucking stoked.
Yeah, Liberty might win that one. I mean,
they should win that one.
They freaking better.
You'd hate to see it if they didn't.
Oh God, yeah. You go see freaking Hartford, Connecticut's going to be on fire.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and do our top 4 and then our first 2 out, since you already broached the subject. So what's your top 4 if you could rearrange these, and then your 5 and 6? Sheldon.
I'll be honest, man. I the top 4 I have the same. I mean, I don't think you could rearrange them if you wanted to, but Tennessee, you got to win over Alabama. It was at home. I think the top 4 is fine just like it is.
Who'd you have at 5 and 6?
I have UCLA and TCU just based off of their wins. They're both undefeated. TCU's actually got 3 wins over ranked teams. Granted, 2 of them aren't in the top 25 anymore, but still they're playing pretty good. Do I think I think both of them have suspect defenses. I don't think in the grand scheme of things that either of them would beat a Georgia or an Ohio State or even a Michigan when it comes down to it. But I think they're, as it stands right now, for me, those are my top 2 outside of the top 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my top 6 is the exact same as what is shown there, but rearranged. So I have Ohio State at 1. I think I have not seen them flinch this whole season. I haven't, besides the Notre Dame game, the first game of the season, which, I mean, it's the first game, but since then, they haven't looked like they're in any trouble. And I got Tennessee at 2. I mean, that's a big win against Alabama. Granted, had Alabama just made a field goal, they probably wouldn't have won. So, I mean, I'm curious to see how Tennessee's defense holds up the rest of the way. I got Michigan at 3. They looked really good against Penn State.
They did.
But both sides of the ball, they've looked well. They've struggled a few games, like they struggled against Maryland. There's another game where they struggled.
It's a tough game, yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence about them. And I got Georgia at 4. They've also struggled a little bit. I just don't think they have the offensive firepower that Michigan has. So that's kind of my question mark with them. And then Clemson, I got at 5. I had them at like 2 last week, but they've struggled. They struggled against NC State. They struggled against Wake Forest. Struggled against Florida State. Pretty much any legit team they faced, they've struggled against. And then I have Alabama at 6. I mean, they played Tennessee to the wire, so I mean, you got to keep them up there, in my opinion.
Yeah, mine's almost exactly the same. Ohio State, Tennessee. I just have Georgia and Michigan flipped. I think it was. I got Georgia 3, Michigan 4, and yeah, then Clemson, Alabama. Yeah, they're locked. They're super. The seven super locked until they start beating each other. 'Cause, yeah, you got Alabama, Georgia play each other. Ohio State's gonna end up playing Michigan, and then Tennessee. I think
They play
they
Georgia.
yeah, they got Georgia this year at Georgia, and then they'll probably, if they win that game, they'll be playing Alabama probably again in the SEC championship.
I have a scenario to run with you guys. Okay, let's say Georgia just barely beats Tennessee. Well, they beat them. Like maybe it's an OT game, maybe it's like an Alabama Tennessee where it's just by like one score. Georgia and Alabama are playing in the SEC championship, and Alabama just barely beats Georgia.
Do they both get in?
Do all three SEC teams get in? If Tennessee's only loss is very close to Georgia, Alabama's only loss is very close to Tennessee, and Georgia's loss is very close to Alabama. Could we see three SEC teams? I mean, I think it's possible.
Yeah, in that scenario, it's very possible.
And then you got an Ohio State or Michigan undefeated.
They're playing each other, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one's also got a loss. So you got 4 one-loss teams right there that are all against each other in the top 5. Do you think an undefeated Clemson gets pushed out?
I don't think so. I think if Clemson goes undefeated, they're in. And just for the record, like I agree with y'all's top 6 as far as like the teams that are best and actually have the best chance. I agree. I'm just going off of like, hey, Alabama lost, I'm knocking them out. But to me, Alabama would beat TCU or UCLA. So
I don't know. Max Duggan is pretty good. TCU's offense is humming.
Yeah,
I think TCU could take that same recipe Tennessee did, and challenge on their safeties with that receiver that they have.
Deep passes, yeah.
I can't remember that dude's name, but he's like one of the top receivers in the league. His last name's like Johnson. That guy was crazy.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about for Tennessee. TCU. Gotcha.
What is that guy's name?
Quentin Johnson.
There you go.
Yeah, that guy. He's crazy.
I was skeptical when Gary Patterson, when they got rid of Gary Patterson. I was like, what are you doing? Like, that guy's had more success at TCU than anyone, but hey, what the fuck do I know? They're undefeated right now. So.
Exactly. See, that's why we're not college football coaches or
maybe one day.
So,
well, Gary Patterson's doing a great job at Texas, so he moved on to be on their staff. I think he's coaching some of their defense. He's done a really good job. I mean, he'll get another opportunity soon, I think.
Yeah, you can attribute a lot of their success to him for sure.
I think that's probably the best thing you could do if you're a coach and you're not having success. Go find a good team and whatever your strength is, whether it's offense or defense, and go be that coordinator just to kind of rejuvenate yourself and kind of, reprioritize like what you got going on.
Yeah.
And then maybe you just need a different team. Maybe the team you were on as head coach wasn't really working out. So I like it.
I'm going to go grab another drink real quick.
Do it.
All right. So we'll just transition into our biggest takeaway of the week. We'll wait.
Good. You know what? While he's doing that, I'm gonna pee again. I'm 36 now, man. My bladder's just not.
Jesus, you need to get a bucket. Old people, I swear. Yeah, this weekend was absolutely crazy for college football. Absolutely crazy. Okay, that's my next topic. Oh, yeah, we went to an OU game. It was a lot of fun. OU Stadium is actually sick. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. We ended up. I felt like we walked a mile to get into our seats. It was like all these ramps. It was absolutely awful. My calves were on fire. It turns out there was an elevator we could have taken. Had no idea until we was coming out of the stadium. We had to wait in line like, I don't know, 10 minutes for the elevator, but 10 minutes waiting in the line for the elevator compared to walking a mile up the goddamn stadium was a great decision on our part.
We ran up those ramps.
How was the parking though, man? That's like, what did you...
We had to park like a mile away from the stadium, and like
we had to park in a frat house.
In some frats parking lot that they were charging people to park in. It was like 20 bucks.
You know what? That's smart. Good for them.
It was every frat house on the campus, every parking lot, even people's own houses. They were like you could park in their grass. They had like signs out and like sitting out there in front of in the park like driveway.
That's their STD fund. That's how they get medical care is charging parking.
Hey, do what you gotta do. I respect the hustle. All right. Biggest takeaway of the week.
Tennessee's for real, man.
They are for real. There was a lot of question marks coming into this game. I knew they were for real. That's why I predicted, me and all my glory predicted this win 3 weeks ago. Yeah, they look really, really good. Josh Heupel is turning out to be a genius. Hendon Hooker is turning out to be a Heisman contender. Their offense is insane. Very, very high powered, very fast paced. They can score on you in 2 plays from their own 1 yard line. It's
You know what's interesting about their offense though? There's nothing fancy about it. It's not like they're coming up with all these crazy plays and like screen passes and trick plays and anything like this. It's literally, I mean, they're running streaks, bro. This is like Madden 2008. You know, this is like college football 2008, and I have Ohio State, and I'm just running streaks every time, and it's just like bombs. That's what they're doing, and it's working.
They just know their receivers are better than you, and that's what they're like. All right, go out there and prove it. And their receivers line up, and I'm imagining they're just talking mad shit on that cornerback or whoever's on them. They're like, they're like, watch this, and then boom, and then Hendon Hooker's just like, do. He's got a big arm too.
Well, they move at a very fast pace, but a commentator was like noting that during the game, like they move at a very fast pace, but like Hendon Hooker never looks like rushed. He could get up there quick, but he stays calm the entire time. And I think that helps a lot when you have a quarterback that just stays poised.
Agreed.
And he's mobile too, which helps out significantly. They're not he's not confined to the pocket and getting sacked by really good.
It's more exciting football too, honestly.
I agree. What was your takeaway of the week, Nick?
Just how this was like one of the better college football weekends I've seen in years, honestly. Because oftentimes we have weekends like this lined up, and then like in any other year, like Bama would have beat Tennessee, and like Oklahoma State would have beat TCU, and USC would have beat Utah. But this week, everything just lined up perfectly, and everything that could have possibly happened to just shake just the college football landscape to happen. It was just super exciting. I was happy because pretty much every game besides the Clemson Florida State game, like every other game went exactly the way I wanted it to go. And it was just it was a fun weekend. And now we have like some change-ups. Like could Tennessee make the playoffs? Like we haven't seen anybody besides like Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia like the past few years. And it's kind of nice just to see like new teams get in there. We got TCU, UCLA we've touched on. Like if they play really well, we could see more fresh faces in there. I think UCLA is a very complete team, even more so than TCU, in my opinion. They have a really good defense. If anybody watched the Utah game, they really put it on Cam Rising, and then it kind of made Utah look like a fraud. And then they went into USC, and they played really, really good.
Yeah, mine's along the similar subject. Just the sheer upsets for the weekend. We talked about this last week coming into this weekend. Like it was very, very high potential for all the upsets to happen. I think there was like 6 ranked teams that got beat. Speaking of 6, isn't it weird to see an Alabama at 6? It seems so foreign.
It's great. And watching how upset Nick Saban was with many things on Saturday. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's the GOAT, man. He's the greatest college football coach of all time. But, eventually you get sick of that shit. And just to watch him throw his headset down and pitch a fit like a baby. Hey, look, I'm a Duke fan. That's one thing I always couldn't stand about Coach K is why, he always preached body language to his players, but no one has worse body language as a coach than Coach K did, right? So Nick Saban's doing the same fucking thing, and I enjoyed it. I took great pleasure in it, so.
I couldn't imagine he's happy. They had a astronomical amount of penalties, like almost all year. It's like every game. It's crazy. They look so undisciplined. It's weird. I
actually watched his press conference today. Like it was around noon. He sounded like pretty calm because he's Nick Saban. He's like we've been here a million times. We'll probably bounce back. He sounded really calm, but he sounded way different than he looked on Saturday. I'll just say that. I remember there was this one play. What was it? I can't remember. Maybe it was pass interference and offsides or something where he just like lost his shit on whichever player like did it. It was
Oh, wasn't it
hilarious.
like a punt or a kickoff or something?
Oh yeah, and he
Yeah, that's what it
the
was.
dude like thought somebody else on the team touched it, so went to go grab it and got
Mhm.
hockey
exactly what
checked
it
on the
was.
back.
Oh man, what a dumbass.
That dude got fucking smacked.
Oh.
That was a hockey check.
That was the second dumbest moment of the week. The first one was the guy that made the play on special teams for the Patriots and then presented the game ball to
Bill
Belichick,
Belichick.
and he's like, "What the fuck? No, get away from
I was
me!"
I was just about to bring that up because we was talking
That
about
was so
Saban.
funny, man.
Yeah, Saban probably looked calm because he put his foot in a lot of asses over the last couple days, and that man's not happy. I bet those players got it.
Well, the bench is deep. He could bench whoever he wants. Quite honestly.
Sure.
Yeah, at this point, you might as well. Like,
And honestly, when you have a Bryce Young, like, how much worries do you have? The dude's I mean, they lost and he played so well,
Yeah, he
well.
We'll get into him here in a little bit.
He's a beast, man.
Yeah. So my takeaway was just upsets, astronomical amount on the weekend. We kind of seen it coming. Like Nick said, there's the potential that it doesn't work out like you hope, but this time it did for all the fans. Okay, who's everybody's player of the week? I feel like we could all have the same one.
Jalen Hyatt,
Well,
is that everybody's?
If it is a wide receiver from Tennessee,
Jalen
which it looks
Hyatt.
like it is.
That's everybody's.
This man had a Randy Moss game. Oh, unbelievable. I don't know if I've ever seen a performance. That man had 5 touchdowns on 6 receptions for 207 yards.
Can you imagine getting torched by someone that ugly? Look at that dude, man. He's terrible.
Look at that haircut. That's just unbelievable. And like on the season, he's only got 10 touchdowns, 595 yards. So he got half of his total touchdowns in one game, and a good almost third of his total yards in one game. Absolutely crazy. If that guy keeps putting up games like that, put him in the Heisman contention.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so sick of quarterbacks, man. Like, I wanted more than anything when we were deciding who to, and we'll get to that obviously, when we were deciding who to put in the Heisman stuff. Like, I want more than anything like a Charles Woodson, like a defensive player. Like, I hate the lack of respect that they get. It's always quarterbacks every year, maybe a running back or two, but it's
they need to rework the Heisman like criteria voting. Like they should change it to where it's like, all right, you get like 2 QBs, you have to have 1 defensive player, and like 1 non-QB offensive player or something like that. Like like no matter what.
What about this? Quarterbacks in college, just to test it for the NFL for fantasy purposes, quarterbacks in college starting next year get no credit for yards after contact.
I've always kind of like when you'll see like a quarterback throw like a really short screen pass, and then the receiver will take off for like 60 yards, and they get so much credit for something they really had nothing to do with. I've always kind of questioned that stat.
Sure.
Yeah, that's not a terrible idea. I actually kind of enjoy that. Like it should just be air yards. Like as soon as they catch it, that's where your yardage on the day stops.
Yep.
After
but
that,
I can also see too, if you're a really high level quarterback, the way that you're shifting your eyes throws the defense off. So you do get some credit for that, but it's just like how much. It's not really a quantifiable thing, but it's an interesting discussion.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. Did you guys have any other person that you considered? I had Cam Rising. I thought could be mentioned here. I think he had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 passing touchdowns and like 2 rushing touchdowns and like 500 yards or something crazy.
Yeah, there was like 3 quarterbacks that had over 500 yards this week. Insane.
Is this full name
think about
Cameron?
It. That's crazy to have 500 yards passing. I mean, I know it's college, but like that's crazy.
There you go.
All right, let's see his stat line of the day. It was a little wild. All right, he threw for 415. 2 touchdowns, and then he rushed for 3 touchdowns on 60 yards. So
that 2-point conversion at the end, like that was so nuts to me. I was watching that game live. I was like, that is a ballsy call. Yeah. And then he got it. Like I was like, Cam Rising was on fire that game.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I knew he could do. And I'm like sad he hasn't been doing that all year. Like he's the single like reason why I've been high on Utah all year, because I know he's got the potential and he's a gunslinger. He's got that Pac-12 air raid style.
Mhm. He does.
Who was that guy that played for Washington State? Like,
Gardner?
was it Gardner?
Minshew?
Yeah, it was Gardner Minshew. He
Yeah.
the same thing. I was like, who the hell is this guy? That was like when Mike Leach was still there.
Plus, he looks like a pirate too, man.
Yeah, man. That's like that. I love gunslinging QBs, and this guy is the gunslinger that you
He
imagine.
is, man. He's in Utah just breaking Mormon backs at a record pace.
100%, man. He's going nuts out there. So yeah, I think he was kind of a also honorable mention. You can also throw Hendon Hooker, Bryce Young, but
I have the two, both the Michigan running backs, Donovan Edwards, I think is his name, and then like Quorum, of course, just running
like
all over Penn State.
166 and like 174 each.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Actually,
Two-headed
nuts.
monster.
Crazy. All right, so that was our player of the week. There's no debates there. That man had
All on the same page.
one of the craziest wide receiver performances I've ever seen. All right, defensive team performance of the week. We potentially could all have the same one here too.
I just got Georgia just shutting out Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so here's what I wrote in my notes. So I got Georgia just 55-0. I think it's low hanging fruit because we probably expected them to shut Georgia out or shut Vanderbilt out, or at least for it to be close to a shutout. My other game would be even though they gave up like 40 some points 38 points. Georgia Southern had 4 turnovers against James Madison. I think that's a huge reason they won, probably the only reason they won. And then just kind of like a honorable mention shout out, even though they didn't have a bunch of turnovers or anything. Old Dominion held Coastal Carolina in Conway, South Carolina to like 21 points. Just blasted Coastal Carolina, who was previously undefeated. Like I said,
Coastal Carolina's been good.
They have Grayson McCall still had like 350 yards. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country too. If you don't know him, great quarterback. But held them to 21 points in South Carolina, beat them like 49-21, total blowout. So good job for that defense.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I like the non, top 25, because we usually only kind of focus on 25 teams and kind of the small few outliers that, could potentially make it. So
sure.
I like the love for the small teams.
Got to do it every now and then. Got to do it.
Yeah.
Illinois is an obvious choice. Yeah.
Well, because I was really looking at the Georgia Vanderbilt, and I was like, all right, it is a shutout. Like, what better can you do as a defense than to shut a team out? But I was like,
see, my reasoning for having them up top is like 55 points is a lot of like scoring. You're giving your defense has to be on the field a lot if you're scoring 55 points. So absolutely. That defense didn't tire out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of looking at the stats too. Like, I don't know if they had any turnovers. So I was like weighing it, but Illinois is, like we've talked, I'd say top 5 defense statistically in the country. They had 3 turnovers. They limited Minnesota to 180 yards. Granted, Minnesota's quarterback did get hurt because he was going to be in my worst performance again as a player. That man, he's bad. He's real bad. So I think him getting hurt, I don't know what portion of the game, but I think it was like second quarter. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how good their backup is, but obviously not good. So They only had 180 yards, 12 first downs in the entire game, and they almost they doubled the time of possession basically. So
that's insane time of possession. That's like what you see against like not even really an FCS team, because like you said, like if you're scoring a bunch of points, the other team, your defense, that's insane.
Yeah, I looked at this and I was like, holy shit. Illinois is good, and then the win probability was all favored for Minnesota, so which is weird.
It is super weird. Yeah,
doesn't make any sense. This guy. Look at that stat line. Terrible.
Yeah, Minnesota is well coached. I will say that I like their coach a lot. And I think maybe that probably has something to do with the percentage there. But yeah, Illinois. Every facet of the game just annihilated them.
Who was Minnesota's coach that left? He was a highly valued coach. I can't remember. I want to say Scott Frost, but it's not Scott Frost.
No, I can't remember. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
I can't even remember where he went. He got a bigger job. If I'm not mistaken. I really can't remember his name, but yeah.
I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott Frost. Hey man, he's a
free agent.
Yeah.
I mentioned just go
Matt Rule. Matt Rule, another free agent. Great college coach.
I wanted you on here last week so we could talk about Matt Rule.
Yeah, I should have been here. It was probably, it was too soon. It's too soon.
The wound was still fresh.
But I'm happy about it. I've wanted him gone I was pissed when they hired him. So
Really?
Yeah, he's a college coach, man. He's one of those guys. He took every advantage of his situation that he could, which I don't blame him for doing that. But he's got a proven track record for turning teams around at the college level. So I'll be interested to see what happens in the next couple of years.
He's a fantastic college coach. I can't wait to see where he ends up.
To be fair, on his front, you guys don't really have a quarterback. You guys had Sam Darnold. He's obviously not the fucking.
Hey, Baker Mayfield's the truth. I'm not serious right now. He's terrible.
Yeah. So you had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, and I think there was a third.
They threw Cam in there for a little bit. They had PJ Walker up in there.
I like PJ Walker. I like PJ Walker. I watched him play. So the one XFL game I went to was I think it was in DC. I actually watched him play. That guy's good. He's real good.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know why.
Shelton, who do you want to draft? If you guys draft a QB.
I don't know, man. I don't know. If it would have been last year, I probably would have said Malik Willis, maybe for selfish reasons, just because I'm a Liberty guy. I do think Malik went a little low to Tennessee in the third round.
I agree.
I think he's going to be better than Kenny in Pittsburgh. But again, that could be my biases coming into play. I don't know. But for this year, I don't know. I need a couple more weeks to kind of see how things play out before I make that decision. That's a big choice because
it's a loaded class though. It's really a loaded class.
It really is a loaded class. There's probably 4 to 5 guys you couldn't go wrong with, but we've had our two most successful quarterbacks ever have been Jake Delhomme, pocket passer, and then Cam Newton, a solid passer, but also not the most accurate guy. Great scrambler, a big 250-pound guy that you could put on the goal line to push it in. But at the same time, a very poor leader. So I think when Carolina makes that decision, they're going to need to look at it from 3 fronts. Can they throw accurately? And most importantly, beside the can they scramble, but are they a leader? And that's where Cam was lacking the most. His leadership ability was just awful. He just didn't have it, man. Not everyone has it.
I'd go Bryce Young then. I think he kind of fits.
Would be a great choice for sure.
I think he fits all 3 of those teams.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, I don't know his leadership, but he also kind of, maybe not that one, but I'm sure he's got some sort of leadership capability. I think either of those 2 guys, but you'll probably have to trade up to get.
I agree with Bryce because if you look at Bryce, whenever his offensive line plays like shit and he gets sacked or something happens, he's the first one to go up to them and encourage them. Be like, hey, good job, guys. His body language is second to none, man. He's always gonna.
And he plays better.
He does, man. He's solid, man.
He starts cooking the defense. He's pissed. He's like, all right, you want some of this? Yeah. He's
a competitor, man, for sure. So I think that'd be a great choice.
You guys think one more thing on the Panthers? You think you're gonna get rid of McCaffrey? They're fielding offers.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it'll probably happen. I don't know how much of McCaffrey's injury proneness is because we put fucking everything on him. He comes from a very storied, historical, athletic family. I get that, but the guy, and there's only so much you can take, man. He was being thrown to a lot. He was being put at the goal line. He was being rushed for everything, and it's just at some point your body's just not going to hold up to that, that pressure. So I think we probably do get rid of him, and if they're going to do it, they need to do it sooner than later, while his value is still somewhat high, because the longer you wait, the less you're going to get for him. So if you're going to do it, do it now.
I think it's the best move for both sides. I think he has an opportunity to where he's used a lot less, could preserve his strength, his health. He's a great player.
Sure.
He just ended up in kind of not the best situation where he's being used a little bit too much. There's a reason why running backs kind of fizzle out a lot quicker than other positions. Running backs rotate. Every few years, there's a great running back.
I think they could get a first rounder for him. Probably back half of the first round.
Back half, yeah.
About 15 and above, I would say. No team drafting the top 15 is going to give up their pick for a running back.
No, especially at his age. Like, he's only been in the league for, he hadn't been in the league that long. But as you alluded to, like running backs, like you just don't have that much. I mean, your prime is like 3 to 5 years, and anything outside of that, it's just.
I would say you guys could potentially get a top pick from a team that has somebody else's pick, and maybe all they need is like a really good running back. I mean,
yeah,
I can't really think of any team that comes to mind that like only needs a running back to start winning.
I'd have to think about it for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple teams that he'd probably be good fits on, but we'll keep pushing. So we all did defensive team performance. We got most disappointing player of the week. This one was a little tough for me. There was nobody that was like astronomically bad that I've been able to find as of recent, but I found old AJ Swan for Vanderbilt.
Ooh, okay.
he didn't have a bad game. Like he didn't have a great game, but I mean, he
Played
played for
Georgia.
105. I mean, yeah, he played Georgia, 52% completion rating. And I think he did. I don't know why it doesn't stay here, but I'm pretty sure he had a better rushing game. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It is Georgia. You did get blown out.
No.
I really wanted to go Minnesota's QB, but he did get hurt, so I'll let him off the hook this week. He's not coming back.
I think at some point they're gonna have to revisit Vandy baseball, college baseball in the SEC, perfect fit. Any other sport, perfect fit. Football, man, I think you got to put them somewhere else.
ACC, I think ACC would be a good fit for him.
I agree. Academically, that's a perfect fit because the ACC is a much stronger academic conference. So, with your Virginias, your North Carolinas, your Dukes, your Wake Forests. From that standpoint, it would fit perfectly. And I think they would win more games in the ACC because the SEC is just way more well-rounded. Like the bad teams in the ACC are usually pretty bad.
They're never getting up.
Yeah.
They're locked in the cellar.
You got to put them in the Coastal, though. They're not going to stand a chance in the Atlantic. That's for sure. The Coastal, dude, bro, the Coastal is complete ass. It's complete ass.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll roll in with my most disappointing player here. So I actually had, I'm gonna take it to back to the group of 6 teams here. I'm gonna go Todd Centeio, the quarterback for James Madison. So he had 3 interceptions against
2 Ds.
Yeah, 3 interceptions against Georgia Southern. Still put up great numbers from a yardage standpoint. But here's how I'm looking at it. The lights are brightest. You're in the top 25 now. You have your first game to really prove something, and you throw 3 picks against Georgia Southern. So he kind of folded when the lights were the brightest. So I'm going to go with the most disappointing player, Centeio from James Madison.
That's a good pick. I mean, that all makes sense, 100%. He had 3 rushing touchdowns.
He did.
He had 5 total touchdowns. That's crazy, and they still lost. Yeah. The man was carrying the team on his back, but they can
making bad decisions.
4 decisions will cost you 100%.
Absolutely, that cost them the game.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I think people are just getting a little too excited when some of these teams move up.
And they're undefeated.
They're undefeated. Yeah. They're like, oh, they're top 25, which I wasn't actually mad about them being 25 because I'm like, it's 25. It's not. Yeah. It's not 10. It's not 5. Like that spot fluctuates so much. Like
it does.
The truth will be revealed.
I would have been mad if there was like like Tulane sitting down here like 6-0 or something like that. I'm like, okay, you know what? You probably want to put Tulane over them. Like, there's no hype on James Madison other than them being new. So
I mean, good for them though. First year in FBS, already in the top 25 halfway through the season. What an accomplishment, man.
Yeah, with that one loss, they could potentially maybe make it back into the top 25.
Oh, absolutely. If they went out in the Sun Belt, they're back in easily.
There's a good chance. Very good chance. Who you got, Nick?
It was hard for me to pick because, like you were saying, there wasn't a lot of really terrible performances.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I have Will Anderson. I mean, he only had 3 tackles, but I mean, it's not like the whole defense sucks, so I can't really just put it all on him.
That's true.
But, I mean, for a guy that, people are putting like in their top 5 Heisman as a defensive player, he's kind of been a little underwhelming this season. And then against a great offense like Tennessee, that's the type of guy you want to step up and have a big game. And, I mean, he didn't do a whole lot. 2 of his tackles were assisted. So you would expect him to maybe get a sack or just make a big play. He didn't, but at the same time, he set up for their whole defense. They just got torched by Tennessee the entire game.
They did.
I
You know
think
what's funny about that? Whenever I was trying to figure out who my defensive player was, I couldn't find anyone at first, and I was just gonna say Alabama's whole defense because utterly disappointing, right? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you picked him.
I think he's killing his draft stock, to be honest with you. He's not having a good year
No.
compared to last year. I don't know what's going on with him. Like maybe they're not playing him the same way they were last year, or maybe I don't know who off that defensive line left. Maybe somebody else was kind of supporting him up a little bit with their performance.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Alabama's defense to really
This is
say
kind of
that.
an observation I've made over the years is
Getting
that
some more boys.
All right.
oh yeah, like top players, if you notice like the year right before they go to the draft, they seem to decline in performance a little bit. Maybe they're just not playing as hard because they don't want to get hurt. I mean, you could look like all kinds of players. They stop.
But you also don't want to sit the season out too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think he'll still go first round. I don't think he's gonna be a top 10 anymore. Probably more in the 20 range. I think he's sliding a little bit.
I think he's definitely killing himself. What is he? He's a junior. He could have left last year.
Well,
right?
if he's like a true junior, this would be his first eligible year.
Oh yeah, no, because it would say redshirt junior.
Yeah, redshirt sophomore. He could leave.
I mean, he's not even top 10 in sacks. He's fucking 150 plus in tackles. He's got 1 interception. Like he's not top 10 in anything on stat wise. So he's killing himself on the stat page. He's like you said, he's
pick, Nick. Really good pick.
I think he'll still get in the first round. Just Alabama. He's got a big name. I think he'll slide late in that first round. If not, and let's say he has a great combine. I don't know why teams put so much stock in that, but they do. If he just has a great combine, he might slide his way back into the top 10.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say, if the Giants take him, I'm gonna be upset. That's like I would be thoroughly upset. I know we haven't taken a linebacker in like 50 years in the first round, something crazy. And he's technically a linebacker, but he's more so like a blitzing defensive end like linebacker. I would not be happy at all. We don't.
I don't think I knew that you were a Giants fan. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
He's having a great year, man. What do you think about my guy Daniel Jones? Just game manager, getting it done.
I don't like him. I really don't.
Oh yeah,
I've been high on him this year because I think he's a really good fit for Daboll's system. Coming from Buffalo, sure. He has like very similar physical. I'm not saying he's the same player as Josh Allen, but he has a similar build to him. He kind of has a similar play style, and I think 5-1. I mean, he's not destroying you guys.
I think he's like doing the absolute bare minimum of like what he needs to be doing to where we're not rioting for him to be gone. And this was the year, like this was his last chance.
His proven year.
This was it. And I'm kind of mad because now we're going to be too high out of the draft to not be able to draft a QB. We're probably going to make the playoffs. So he's kind of like fucking us at the same time. Like we're not going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to make the playoffs.
I'll tell you what, though, there's not anyone in America that's watched the NFL the last few weeks that's familiar with what the Ravens have done and then have watched the Giants that didn't know that the Giants weren't going to make that comeback. Like with 7 minutes left, you guys were down by like 10 and you had the ball in Ravens territory. Everybody knew the Giants were going to win that game because the Ravens have all 3 of their losses are like that. All of them.
Yeah.
They can't
shit in the bed.
Yeah.
Their defense has been crazy bad this year. They have like the 32nd worst pass defense in the league. And the crazy thing was going into that game, we could not fucking pass the ball. Yeah. We could not throw the ball. We could not run the ball. We could not do anything on offense. It was our defense that won us that game. And Lamar Jackson made some poor decisions.
Sure.
The fumble, maybe, not necessarily all on him. That interception, though, was very bad decision.
Yeah.
But back to Will Anderson, would be upset. I don't want him. Do not want him. We don't need him.
I think he's more solid than he's shown this year. I'll say that much. I think he's, like I said, I think he's holding back because he doesn't want to get hurt for the NFL draft. He doesn't want to risk that money. It might cost him a little bit, slipping down, but he's still like easily top 2 rounds, if not like a top 15 pick, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
He's definitely first round, but We'll see. Maybe he turns it up the back half of the year, which he probably needs to because that defense is suffering.
I think you made a good point though. Like this, last year before going pro, a lot of times guys fold and have a bad year that year. So I think you made a good point with that.
That could be a lot of pressure on somebody, like
Sure.
this is like I'm going to the league. Like there's almost a guarantee. Like without a shadow of a doubt, you're gonna get drafted.
Yeah.
And then now going into your draft year, and now you're like, all right, I got to perform, or I'm not gonna go where I want to go, or where everybody's saying I'm gonna go because like I'm a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure on somebody. I couldn't even imagine. Like I walked into that OU stadium and I was like, holy shit! I could not imagine playing in front of all these people. Like
it's scary.
I could not imagine it. And then just the ruthlessness of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like even your home team, like Alabama's probably not that bad because they've been so dominant forever. Like they're used to winning. They're very spoiled. So, I couldn't imagine being in that position with that pressure on you. And I'm sure Bryce Young is right there in the same boat, but he's persevering. So
yeah, because at some point, some team is gonna be the team that shits the bed, right? Alabama has been fantastic. Saban got there back from Miami, led the pros like 2006, 2007, that time frame. Ever since he's got there, especially starting with like 2009, I think they went to the Sugar Bowl and lost to Utah. Ever since then, they've just been completely dominant. Like there hasn't really been a year where they're like, oh, lost 4 games. Like at some point, some team's
like
going to be that team. And every person that comes in there now is thinking, shit, what if that's me, right? So like that pressure is huge. I don't even think it's so much from the fans. I think it's just from the standpoint of like Alabama and Saban's legacy. That's a lot of pressure, man.
Well, yeah, if you go to Alabama, there's a very, very high probability you're going to the league just based off that team. Like the scouts are always there.
Yeah,
they go to Alabama probably first to look for talent. I know I would if I'm an NFL scout. Oh, I'm planning out my year trip. Where am I gonna go? What games am I gonna go see? Oh, Alabama first. Let me look up their schedule. Oh, they're playing all these big teams. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to Alabama 5 times this year.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's a very good point too. There's so much pressure playing for a big school like that. Couldn't imagine.
No.
I imagine just getting up and speaking in front of people, let alone playing a sport like that in front of everybody. And I've been speaking. Yeah. I've been speaking all my life.
Yeah. Being the narrator at a Commander's call is hard. Can you imagine playing in Alabama?
Absolutely fucking not. It's crazy. It's okay. We got our Heisman top 5. This will be interesting. I feel like we could have similarities with 4 out of the 5. I think.
All right, I'll go ahead and go first on that one. Because in my opinion, I think 3 guys are kind of pulling away with this one. So I have CJ Stroud at number 1. I really, really wanted to put Hendon Hooker above him, but because they're on a bye week, he hasn't looked bad at all. Only 3 interceptions. He's got 24 touchdowns. He's just dominated every game he's been in. At 2, I got Hendon Hooker. Like I really wanted to put him at number 1 because I like him so much, but give him a few more weeks, he might slide up in there. I think he's really turning upwards. Like a few weeks ago, he wasn't even really on my top 5, and now he's all the way up to 2. At 3, I got Blake Quorum, and those are the 3 guys I think are just really just running away with the thing right now. Blake Quorum, you just know he's going to score. You just know he's going to score every game. Yeah. And then at 4, I have Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA, also on a bye week, but he has looked really good this whole season. He has a good chance against Oregon to prove himself. Like I've said this like multiple episodes, like he looks so focused. He's the only player in college football that just has that like killer instinct. Like I'm wearing my Kobe shirt today. Like he's got that mama mentality with him for sure. And then 5, I got Bryce Young because even in a loss, man still threw for like 455 yards. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah,
you can't take him out. I mean, he's so good. He's so good.
Great. Yeah, 100%. I think mine's similar, minus 1, adding a different one. I guess I'll go. I got Hendon Hooker number 1. I mean, you take down Bama. They're the number 1 team in college football for the last 10 plus years, and he's having a incredible season. He's brought Tennessee back into the limelight of college football. Tennessee hasn't been good since what Peyton Manning was there. That
Well, the year after they won the national title, but
yeah, okay. So then, what year was that?
99, 98.
Absolutely forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a feat in its own. He's the guy. He's killing it, and he beat Bama. That's my main thing. Like you take down the champ, the juggernaut, and he's having just a killer season. He threw his first interception in this game. First interception on the season. Yeah, his stats aren't crazy good, but if he goes undefeated, I think he's got it. I think he's got it. Number 2, CJ Stroud. I've had CJ Stroud number 1 all year, other than I think Bryce Young was number 1 for a minute. And then CJ Stroud's had that lockdown. His stats are just incredible. 24 touchdowns. He's got the most, tied for the first most touchdowns as a quarterback in college football. Number 1 QBR, only 3 interceptions. He's handled his business. They've scored almost over 50 in every game they've played outside of Notre Dame. That's the one like kind of blemish on them. And even in that game, he still looked incredible. He still had the composure. The defense was giving him fits, and he was still finding ways to make plays, and he won them that game. Number 3, I got Blake Corum. I seen a stat. He has like more like, so it was like, I think it was Derrick Henry and like Reggie Bush or something like that. He's got more like everything than they did at this point in the season. At this point, which is crazy. Yeah. And if he keeps that up and he doesn't win, it's a crime. It's a crime against college football. 13 touchdowns as a running back on week 7 is crazy. Granted, most of his touchdowns, I would say at least half are probably from like the 1-yard line, but like it's still a touchdown. Like it's still in the stat book. You can't take that from the dude. He's almost got 1,000 yards. And he's like the heart of the Michigan offense.
Yeah.
He's carrying that team. Like I think we talked about this. JJ McCarthy looks good. He's the guy that they got going right now. He's doing what he needs to do, but Blake Corum is carrying the team on his fucking back. Like absolutely carrying him. We'll pull up this Penn State game real fast. This is another time of possession one that was crazy that I was looking at. 41 minutes.
Nuts.
They
nuts,
ran the ball
nuts.
all over them. They just ran the ball.
Look at the total yards.
Yeah, they ran the ball the whole game.
That is
like,
that's
that's crazy. I don't get it. How many? This dude only the QB only threw for 145 yards. They were not throwing the ball at all.
Wasn't one of Penn State's touchdowns like a kickoff return or a punt or something too?
Interception return.
Oh, it was a pick 6. That's what it was. Yeah. So like, I mean, great for the defense, but it's like if you take those points out, the offense did nothing.
Yeah. Nothing. It would have been 41-10.
Yeah, it's insane.
Or maybe even more because they might have scored on that drive.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be 48-10. So
yeah.
I just that's another big thing for Blake Corum in my opinion on how successful he's been is like. This is what they're giving him all this time. They are just pounding. And then they take him off. And then the other dude you mentioned comes in and just has an equally or better game. I think he had a better game.
He had a better game, yeah.
That's why it's hard to stop a team like that, because when you got Corum pounding in there time after time after time, it's like now you got the defense on their toes, right? They don't know if they're going to throw it. They don't know if they're going to run it. Like either way, they're screwed. So it's a good way to be for sure.
Right. I got Bryce Young at 4. So he missed a game because he was hurt, and he's lost a game, and he's the previous Heisman winner. I think those are all negatives for him. I mention this almost every week in this Heisman conversation. They do not want to give you a Heisman if you've already won one, unless you have an incredible season. Like you have to outperform your previous year. I literally said this every week, and he's not having a better year than he did last year. And like I said, he's missed 1 week and lost a game. So and he took so many hits this last game. Like there's a decent probability like his shoulder could be re-aggravated or something else could come up in the next game or two based off of all the hits he took in this one. But he did have an excellent game. He did everything he could have done to try to win that game for them. It's just their defense let him down in a major way. He's a baller. I really like Bryce Young, but I hate him at the same time. I'm just glad he didn't win. I was like, Bryce Young, I absolutely hate you. Like, please just lose. Like the whole game I was watching that.
Best leader on the list, though. Like, I think we can all agree there. Best leader on the list.
He's I would love to have him on my team. I would Daniel Jones kick rocks. Bryce Young, new sheriff.
There you go.
New sheriff in town. Number 5, I got Caleb Williams. He's having a great statistical season. Yeah. That one loss does really, really impact him. If he don't win out, there's no chance that he has it. If he can make it to the end of the year with just the one loss, if he has really good stats, he's got a good shot at it.
He had a great game against Utah. I mean, you look at his stats, he played phenomenal.
Yeah, he had 5 total touchdowns. I think 2 of them were rushing. No, I guess they were all passing. For some reason, I thought he had some rushing yards, but I don't know. He's having a good season, but it's just like it's hard to argue like who you're gonna swap him out for. Dorian Thompson, like that would probably be the only person you could switch him out for, or
a lot of somebody else.
A lot of people.
I think it comes down to those 2 players, those 2 teams too, like who finishes out like at a
better spot.
Yeah. Exactly.
I've also seen Drake May in some spots, but
yeah, he's like 7, 8-ish. I mean, if the ACC, the Coastal is just it's terrible. So it's hard.
If they went out, he's in there. I think he's going to the ceremony. He's
definitely going to the ceremony. Yeah.
Like what does his stat line look like? Okay, so Caleb Williams almost has 200 or 2,000 yards.
I think he's at 1,800. I could be wrong about that. That's off the top of my head. He's only got 3 interceptions, I believe.
This man has almost 2,300 yards.
I was wrong. Yeah.
So he's tied with CJ Stroud. He's the one that's tied for CJ Stroud, and I thought it was some fucking random dude from like Ohio.
Yeah. And he's got a family legacy there too. All his uncles and his dad and his brother, they all
NFL athletes,
basketball,
I think, right?
College football, whatever. But here's the thing that really separates him. Though, go look at the teams they played. It's not good. It's
Miami.
Tech. This may be the worst Virginia Tech team in Virginia Tech history. They're bad. Georgia State. That came down to the wire.
Right. I was like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah, that came down to the wire. The Duke game came. I'll be honest. I'll cover this later when we talk about our favorite teams. The Duke game was utter bullshit. There was a call at the end of that game that shouldn't have happened. That really changed the whole face of the end of the game. But 2,200 yards. That's insane. 24-3. That's crazy, man. He's a super talent.
He's a freshman. He's a true freshman, I think. He's not a redshirt. He's a true freshman. This guy is the new Sam Howell for South Carolina, probably better.
He's not as handsome though. That's the only other thing. He's not as handsome.
He looks like a dude that does cake stands consistently.
Yeah.
You could sell him grams of oregano and he would buy it. I'm surprised he don't have his collar popped up in his picture. If I was him, I'd have had it popped.
He's spending 30 a G.
30 a G, yeah, 100%.
You ever spent time in Chapel Hill?
I've never been to
every guy looks like that and just reeks of sexual assault. It's not good. It's bad.
He looks like he'd be on like the rowing team. The dude's solid. I think he's probably sitting at 6 behind Dorian.
I would have AJ Martinez actually ahead of him. I think seeing what he does against TCU, he has great rushing stats. Obviously, his passing yards aren't the best.
Why is Adrian Peterson even on here? This man's not even playing football.
He's one of the best running backs of all time. We're talking about running backs fizzling out after 5 years. That man went 10 straight years, pretty much.
You know what he's not good at, Nick? He's not good at boxing. That's for sure.
That man got laid out. He's also not a good dad either.
Oh God, dude! Old dad just beating the hell out of kids with trees.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore. I don't know. I can't put Adrian Martinez. Like this is nothing even close.
Well, pull up his rushing stats though. I mean, he's rushing his ass off.
He's got 7
touchdowns.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's got great but it's
see what he does against TCU. Like
you have to be a passer. Like your QB is a passing. Like that's what they want you to do. Like a predominant passer. Like you can be a good rusher, but they want passing yards. And I think that's the thing people want.
Hey, you know who really needs to be in the 6th spot above May is some of these teams' kickers and punters. Those are the real MVPs this year. Field position is so important this year. And like every year that we progress, whether it's college or pro football, It's getting insane what these guys can do. I don't know what training they're doing, what steroids they're doing, like what their daily routines like. But I mean, we got college kickers like lining up kicking 50-yard field goals like it's nothing. We got pro kickers kicking 60 to 65-yard field goals like it's nothing. And then these kickers are kicking off and it's non-returnable. It's nuts. And that's such an underrated part of like strategy of a game. I mean, if you're having to start from the 25 to 2025 every single drive, that's long. That's arduous. It sucks.
Speaking of that, I think it was the Jets punter. The man kicked like a 70-yard punt. I think it was him. Somebody in the NFL this week kicked like a 70-yard punt or like 67 yards. Like they were backed up like in their own 10, and that dude kicked it to the other side of the field. Was it this guy? What is his stats? I wonder if it'll show up for this week. Okay, what is going on here? Fuck off. 61-yard long. Maybe it's not him. I don't know what punting stats.
I know what you're talking about. I think I saw it. I just can't remember which team it was with.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I think it was probably the longest punt I've ever seen. I was like, holy shit.
I think there's more with all that said, though. I think there's just more focus on the significance of special teams now. You know, back in the day, that was like an afterthought. It was like, oh, if you're the special teams coach, you're kind of like starting at the bottom. Special teams, you're kind of guys that like you're not really athletic skill position players. You're getting pushed to special teams. But now, man, I mean, there's guys that are like doing some MVP level. You know, I'm not talking about for the season, but MVP of game level shit on a special.
This guy had a 74-yard long punt.
How? That's
incredible. All right, I'll get. And he had a 7-yard return on that. I think that's what this is, or maybe he's only allowed 7 returns. I think that might be it. Yeah, 7 total returns. Would you rather have a punter who can hit 74 yards on a punt, or a kicker who can hit 50 plus mostly consistently? I'm taking the punter. That's
I'm
like
taking the punter. Yeah,
the flipping of the 74 yards on a punt is just crazy. If you can flip the field like that, like it don't matter where, you could be on your 1-yard line and you let that man kick 74 yards.
Yeah, and plus too, he's got the whole field to work with, right? The kicker's got that little narrow area. And honestly, a lot of times those guys that are making 55, 60-yard field goals, sometimes they'll miss little chip shots too. So like there's no chance of a punter missing. He's got a huge area to work with. So I'm definitely
kick it out of bounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that could have happened, but I'm taking the punter.
Oh, fucking San Francisco's kicker also kicked it 74. Like that's the long of the season. It looks like 74. That's insane. 74 yards.
Stupid.
Like, if you had 5 years to get to the point where you had to be able to kick 74 yards or you're dying, do you think you could do it? You had 5 years straight. That's all you could do is punt every day. You just work on punting.
I don't know. I don't think I can do it. We did PT like 2 weeks ago. We played football and I kicked one and it went like 10 yards.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Anyways, moving on.
I threw us way off topic.
Small punting tangent.
What was your Heisman top 5?
So I mean, you guys pretty much covered it. I don't have too much to add. So I had the exact same top 5 as Jaden did. I just had CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker mix or swapped. So
switch. Yeah.
Same exact time or same exact top 5. Just had those two swapped.
I think that's an easily like swap there, like 24-3, 15-1. Like that's kind of a big jump. He's almost got the same yards, and he had a bye. So,
but the Alabama win's huge, like you said. That's a really, really good point, man. And he's
like
playing in a tougher league. He's playing in a much tougher league. I mean, the Big Ten's good, but it's not SEC good, top to bottom. So, I mean,
for CJ Stroud to win, he's gonna have to win out. I mean, according to the schedule, like Penn State fraud. I think Iowa could potentially give them some fits.
They're a great defense.
That defense is crazy. I was speaking of Iowa for the most disappointing performance.
You're looking for him. I know you were.
I always go to Iowa. Spencer Petras. This man's been on here twice. I look first guy I look for. I'm like, who's Iowa playing?
Right.
And man, they're terrible. This is the worst offense in the entire college football.
Bro, that week 1 game against South Dakota State, they set football back like at least 50 years. I mean, it was bad.
I would rather go outside and sit on my front porch and watch my grass grow. Like I would rather watch I don't know any other sport, like something probably I've never even seen in my life.
I'd rather get on lemonparty.org and participate in the Pain Olympics than watch Iowa play football.
Oh no. Yeah, that's just bad. So yeah, the only way CJ Stroud's winning it, they go undefeated. Let's see, what's Tennessee working with? They have a pretty easy schedule outside of Georgia, so
Well,
I think they could.
Kentucky.
Be favorable. Georgia's tough.
I think he could still lose to Georgia and still win. I think he could.
We'll see how. I mean, like we've talked about South Carolina. Let's say they do improve. I could see them giving them at least a little bit of a fit. I don't think they'll win, but they could give them a fit.
I was just thinking that.
I said this earlier in the year. I still stand by it. I think Michigan beats Ohio State.
I hope so.
I do too, and
I'm rooting for Michigan. I actually think Ohio State's going to win because I think it's in Ohio State. I think.
Yeah, it is. It is at home, and Michigan almost never wins ever in Columbus. I would not want to play Ohio State in Ohio State. That rushing attack is just it's tough. If I don't know Ohio State's running defense, and if it's not squared away, they're going to be in for it.
It's going to be a shootout, probably. Like, realistically, it's probably going to be a shootout.
I think it depends on how the teams start too. I think Michigan's roadmap for success, they have to stop Ohio State from starting fast. If they can keep them kind of pinned down in the first quarter, then it's anybody's game after that. But it's really going to be about how the teams start.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think JJ McCarthy is going to be like the big question mark for that game. Michigan's quarterback.
Yeah.
Sure.
What is he gonna do? Like, because they're gonna have to pass. They're not gonna be able to just run the ball like they did this past week on Penn State. And if they do, more power to them. I'd love to see it. But Ohio State knows they're gonna be able to run the ball every play almost. They'll probably come in, run it first, second, maybe even third down 3 times in a row. Maybe even go for it on 4th down, depending on where they're at.
Sure.
So JJ McCarthy's gonna have to make some big passes, some big plays, maybe make something happen with his feet. I don't know if he can do it, but I really think Michigan has a really good shot, and I think they beat him.
I'm really excited for that game. That's like that's a game I have circled. Like I am definitely watching that game.
Oh, 100%. It's 11 a.m. too. It's a terrible time to play.
Terrible.
You hate it. Okay, game of the week. We probably all have the same one here.
We could damn near skip this one.
I mean, we got to cover it because it was an incredible game. Alabama, Tennessee. Has anybody got anything different?
No.
So that was my number one, but I picked 4 other games that were also fantastic.
Okay. All right, we'll cover this one just because we got 2 on it, and then we'll let you got your 4. I wanted to pick a different one, but I'm like, there was so many big things going for this game, like college football playoff hopes, Tennessee being back, Heisman rankings. There was just a lot for this, and then just the crazy wide receiver performance. Both
a lot of drama too. A lot of drama. Like there was one point where it looked like Tennessee might pull away, and then Alabama brought it back. So
yeah, Tennessee was up 28-10 in the second quarter.
That interception where they called it pass interference, I thought that was Tennessee's done, and then they throw that PI. I thought I was like, this is game. I shut it off for a minute. And then you texted me, like, let's go, and I was like, oh shit, maybe they did something. And I saw they got a PI.
Once Alabama tied it up in the 3rd quarter, I was like, oh no. You gave up 18 straight points. They scored on 5 straight drives. I was like, this game's over. I was like, there's no way. How do you give up that momentum? You just gave them the game, and they come back, tie you. And then they was able to just find ways to, because they weren't scoring at all. No field goals, nothing. They could not do nothing on offense, and they could not stop. They couldn't get one stop for 5 straight drives. That's like something you want to just bang your head against the wall if you're a fan of the team. It's terrible. and they somehow ended up getting a shootout in the fourth quarter. It was a battle at the OK Corral.
Look how balanced that whole scoring chart is top to bottom. It's like Tennessee, Alabama, Tennessee, Tennessee, Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Alabama. It's just back and forth, man. It's awesome.
Start to finish. And that last drive that Tennessee got with like 19 seconds. Oh, most teams would have just kneeled the ball and taken it to OT. They was like, fuck that.
Huge
We're going
nuts.
for it. And
just nuts for days.
Yeah, they did it. And, it makes sense because of the success they had over that defense, that entire game over the secondary. You might as well try it. So I get it 100%. And I'm so glad they missed that field goal. That dude, Alabama and missing field goals in big games is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
It's like the Bills in the early '90s. I think Tennessee really exposed Alabama's cornerbacks and safeties. I think Alabama had really game planned for shorter passes, like 5 to 7, 5 to 10 yard passes, and Tennessee was just airing it out, streak plays, and it was working. That's kind of the blueprint for success. I think to take Alabama down. I don't know if there's any teams that have receivers that are speedy enough to repeat that performance, but Tennessee certainly did it.
TCU's one guy, but he's not like a speedy guy. He's a big guy.
Sure.
Ohio State. One thing I'll say about Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs, that man was running all over Tennessee. That dude was scary.
That guy's pissing me off. He was handing it off in the backfield. And there was a dude already there, and he's like, nope, see ya, gone." Nope. And I'm like, can anybody on this fucking defense make an open field tackle in the backfield? The dude don't even have the ball yet.
Bro, he's tricking people out like crazy.
That's so frustrating as a fan. Even if you're not like pulling for a specific team or you don't have a dog in the fight, to watch someone miss an open field tackle multiple times like that's frustrating.
All game, they was missing this dude, or they would hit him in the open field and he was like, nah, and gone.
It's almost like he was like a metapod and he used his hardened attack and then it just
100%.
Like nothing they could do.
Yeah, and then he switches out, and then you got Charizard fucking beating your ass. You're like, what the hell just happened? Are these stats
speaking of top 6 Heisman, that guy.
Yeah.
Past 3 weeks, he's been running his ass off.
What is this?
An outlier for sure. For sure.
Okay, so he's got 8 touchdowns less than Quorum, and I think like 200 yards ish. I think he could make it in there.
I think if he has a strong second half of the season in comparison to Quorum, that's when you start looking at like the level of competition, the level of defense and stuff, and then you can kind of make that comparison. Sure.
My last thing I'll say about this game is Alabama. Looking at this, they should have won. They have more first downs.
Yeah.
More than 10 minutes time of possession. One less turnover. And a few more yards. Like that. That's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Those things, man.
I love it. I'm so happy. God. All right, we'll move on to that. What's your next one? What do you got?
I had Utah USC. What a fantastic fucking game, man. It had everything. It looked like for a while that USC was gonna take control, and then they really had control for a majority of the game. And then, Utah, their comeback was patient. It wasn't rushed. It was very patient, and one of those things where they got it at the very end. So what a game!
They were down 21-7 in the second quarter.
They were.
They didn't take the lead until the end of the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's almost like USC just ran out of time.
They literally did not have the lead one time until they won.
That was my favorite game of the week. I'll say that much. I enjoyed that. Cam Rising just at the end.
Beast mode.
USC was favored to win the game. I think Utah was favored to win the game at the start, but
it was I think one thing that's underrated is a very important game for Utah, right? Because they already had this couple of losses, games they very well could have won. They had things gone differently, and they really needed to win that game. And I know from your selfish reasons, like watching Lincoln Riley lose was obviously a big thing, but I think more importantly, it was just that's the kind of win that keeps Utah's season on track and keeps them in the hunt for like a New Year's level bowl game, right?
Yeah, they can win the Pac-12 still. I think they're still in the hunt for that.
Yeah, they just need probably UCLA to lose.
Yeah, that was
game.
the highest crowd attendance in Utah history as well.
Wow.
It was 55,000, which like for
Yes.
West Coast football, that's quite a bit.
That's huge.
They sold it out. It's a capacity of 45,807. They had 53,609 according to this. Like, how do you? Where the fuck was everybody at?
Where's the fire marshal at?
Yeah, that's a fire hazard.
Nobody's in church. Joseph Smith was there. Yo, it's crazy though. 55,000 people. That's max capacity, right? That's like max capacity of like a college basketball stadium, or not really. I mean, big college basketball like Rupp Arena, you're looking like 35,000. I'm obviously being a little facetious there, but you got like the Michigans of the world. It's like 108,000 or something. Like, look at the disparity there. But like Utah was rocking the house, man. Like you said, they were the biggest crowd ever. But it's just insane the disparity between West Coast football and
like Southern and I mean, like we went to the OU game like that. That was probably 80,000 people.
That's nuts, man.
I mean, look at this picture of their stadium. They have like no upper deck level. It's just all first, second level. Like these are great seats. Could you imagine going to Utah game, even sitting up here at the top? Like that's great.
Really great.
What's Norman's population? That's like the whole population. Like 100,000 people. Like you guys are just talking about 80,000 people. Like what's the population in Norman? That's crazy. Ann Arbor can't be more than 100,000 people. It can't be. I mean, they're pulling 100,000 people every other Saturday at those games. That's
Norman's population is 124,000.
80,000 people. That's crazy.
Let's look at the stadium capacity for OU.
I think it's like 80, 82 or something.
86. That's almost it's like 2/3 of the fucking city.
You're having your worst season in years, and you still pack the house like that.
Yeah, awesome. we were sitting. If you can see my mouse, we were up here.
Yeah,
that's a crazy stadium.
You guys weren't in any danger of rushing the field. Is that what you're saying?
If we jumped off, you're dying. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely die. Like if you jump off where we were at. We had a good view of the field though. We're at like the 50.
Who's rushing the field beating Kansas? Come on.
Yeah, right.
OU doesn't rush the field. Like, I mean, you don't see that from like bigger teams.
Speaking of rushing the field, did you see
Georgia
Tennessee?
Southern?
You see Tennessee took down both of their fucking goalposts. They
carried that in the river. Yeah.
I love it. Dude, I've done that before. So that I was talking about earlier when I was at that Duke game back in like 2004 when they beat Georgia Tech. So that was Duke's first ACC win in 3 years. All 12 of us rushed the field and tore down the field goal post. It took a Herculean effort, man. It was crazy.
It's incredible. I like it.
I was sitting right near JJ Redick and Chris Duhon. They were playing basketball at the time. And if you try to sit near them, like anywhere else, it'd be a big deal. But at the football game, it's just like you're one of the guys. Like,
you're like, what's up, dude? You trying to drink some beers?
That's something on my bucket list to be on the field. Like,
it's cool, man.
That.
I can't imagine it at like the Tennessee in Knoxville there. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. You were just waiting for it. Like as soon as that it was an ugly field goal too. It's like he kicked it a certain way to get accuracy more than distance, right? He did that on purpose, but like you knew it was going in, and it cleared by about 10 yards.
And it almost looked like it was going short.
That announcer was definitely like wanting him to miss it. He kept being like, yeah, he was really short earlier. Like he kept saying like over and over before he kicked. Like he was just like hoping he'd miss, and then he made it.
Yep.
All right. USC Utah. What else you got?
What else do I got? Let me look on my list here. I know I got Memphis and East Carolina. So that one's not going to get a lot of talk because it's it's two of those AAC teams. But went to like 4
Memphis Grizzlies.
Memphis Grizzlies, right? Yeah. So this game went to 4 overtimes. I didn't watch it, but I was following it on the bottom, right? And it was just a real back and forth affair. Like I said, 4 overtimes. So that's a huge game there.
Well, and East Carolina almost beat NC State, like second game of the year.
They did. East Carolina's weird, man. So like, here's what happened. East Carolina for years was like the team that would beat Carolina, Wake Forest, Duke, NC State, Virginia every single year. And then they so Duke had like a nice stretch from like 2013 to 2016, right around the time Daniel Jones was there, when we had a offensive coordinator named Scotty Montgomery, and Duke had gone to the Peach Bowl and they lost to Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel, and Duke was an 11 team win that year. They were an 11 win team that year. They're really, really good.
I remember that.
And so he capitalized and he took the job at ECU. And I told their fans, all my friends, I was like, yo, you don't want him because he was a horrible offense. Like, we won in spite of him. He had like 2 plays in the playbook. He sucked. And of course he went there and he set ECU back like 5 to 10 years. So they're just now recovering from Scotty Montgomery, but it is good to see them starting to have some semblance of success again. So
this dude, I remember watching that ECU game against NC State, and they was hyping this man up. This dude's like a 5th-year senior or something. Like, this dude is ECU.
oh yeah,
Like,
look at the yards.
This guy is ECU, 9th in the country.
Yards.
Solid stat line, and I mean, looking at their schedule, we'll go back. Okay, it's not on that one, but like, let's see here. Okay, so Memphis, they beat them. They lost to Tulane, which is not surprising because Tulane's actually pretty good for some reason. UCF sucks. Navy is a incredibly hard team to play with the triple option.
They're 2-4 this year, but they're still like competitive.
That triple option is so frustrating and hard to like. Like, I remember when Georgia Tech would run that and we would play them. And I hated playing Georgia Tech because I always knew there was some small chance that, you know, if we are not disciplined on defense, linebackers mostly, you're not going to win that game. If you have a bad linebacking group and you're playing a triple option team, you're in for a long night. You have to outscore them if they have a really good QB.
They've finally gone away from that triple option now. It's actually somewhat refreshing to see because, like, you know, you have your Armies and your Navies running the triple option, but Georgia Tech under was it Paul Johnson? They ran it for so long, and that's the thing. Like we talked about earlier, when you're a new coach coming into a program, if you're going to change the scheme, the culture, it already takes like 3 years to like get your guys in and kind of change the culture. Now add changing the offensive scheme completely and players that are used to that. I mean, it's even harder to do that. So like Georgia Tech's finally they're starting to have some success the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, we mentioned Georgia Tech. I think 2 weeks ago they was on our. It was my comeback performance.
Yeah, I think it is the one we had like the same performance. I think.
Yeah, they won that first game back after firing their head coach. I can't remember who they beat.
They beat Pitt.
They beat Pitt after firing your head coach, and that's just incredible. And I'm for Georgia Tech coming back into some spotlight in the ACC. It just makes the conference better.
It does.
Overall, they're a cool team too. I like Georgia Tech. The big rivals of Clemson, so that's fine with me. You know, I'm cool with it.
Great basketball school.
Yeah,
they can knock Clemson off. I fucks with it. So yeah, they've only lost to Army, NC State by 1, an overtime loss, a double overtime loss to Navy, and Tulane. So those are all completely explainable losses. So I like East Carolina. I do.
We don't need to like go into depth because I know obviously we got more stuff to talk about on the rest of the games. But I had Oklahoma State, TCU, a lot of dramatics there. Yeah. We already mentioned that. And then the last game I had was Duke and Carolina. It came down literally to like the last 15 seconds of the game. So I kind of touched on this earlier. So it was really back and forth. Duke, this is the first year that Duke's had, the first team that Duke's had in a few years where they really could have won, could have had a chance to beat Carolina, right? So Duke was up 35-31. Carolina, of course, Drake Mays, with 2 minutes left. That's like in the pros giving Tom Brady 2 minutes. You can't do it. So we give him 2 minutes. He comes down the field. It's 3rd and goal with about 15 seconds left. And he hits a receiver in the very corner of the end zone. Now, upon replay, that receiver stepped out of bounds and then came back in. But because how blurry the camera footage was, they determined they didn't have irrefutable evidence to turn it around. So they gave him the touchdown. But he was absolutely out of bounds. There's no question on if he stepped out of bounds. So I'm pretty salty about that because that happened against Miami about 5 years ago. Duke beat Miami and had 1 second left, kicked off to him. Miami ran the touchdown back to beat Duke. And that's the game that kept Duke from winning the Coastal that year. And
remember that.
Yeah, there's been multiple camera angles since then that comes out that shows Miami players clearly on the ground with their knees on the ground with the ball still in their hands. So I don't know what it is with Duke and like the long replays and not being able to get it right. But, in the end, I mean, Drake May did what he had to do. Carolina's offense is elite. If Carolina had the semblance of an average defense, they'd easily be a top 10 team. But their defense is pretty horrible. So, I mean, look at all the yards. There's like 1,100 yards in that game.
That's insane. Drake May is incredible. I would I would trade Jordan Travis for Drake May. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Look at the stats. What an even game. Very even game.
Outside the time of possession, I mean, you guys had 10 more minutes over him and still lost. First downs
takes Duke a little longer to get up the field than it does Carolina, you know.
Yeah. I mean, even you guys' QB had a respectable outing, and he rushed for 130 yards. That man was going nuts.
Sure. Yeah.
It was like a battle between just these two guys. Fuck the receivers and the running backs. It's a QB battle.
That's
right. It was like spring football. They're fighting for the starting spot.
Yeah, the ACC is pretty stacked with quality quarterbacks for sure. I mean, that's one thing we can say about the ACC. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in that league.
I like it.
They're not all healthy, but
that's true. It's good for us though. All right. So, best performance.
What do you
My
got,
team? Oh, I got Michigan.
Me too.
kind of blowing the brakes off of Penn State by a convincing margin. That was a really good. What we thought was a really good team that could still show themselves as being a good team. But yeah, Michigan just blew the brakes off of Penn State. They looked really good. Like I would like to give it to Tennessee, but that one came down to the wire. Michigan won the most convincingly, in my opinion.
Yeah. I didn't want to pick Tennessee or Michigan because I thought maybe one of you two would have picked them. So I went with Utah. And I've kind of homered on Utah all year. I'm not even a Utah fan, it's just crazy. I love this team. I love Utah. They're such a cool team. And Cameron Rising, I fuck with that dude heavy. He's so good. So that's my best performance, and they beat USC, who was, everybody was on USC's little nutsack all year. All of ESPN, USC's a top 5 team just because of their name and their history. Like they've done nothing to warrant any of that so far.
OJ Simpson.
Yeah. So I went with Utah. You had Michigan.
I also went with Michigan, so not much to add there. I think Nick pretty much captured it all. It was, it's tough to say because it's like how good is Penn State? We don't know yet.
I don't think they're good at all.
James Franklin's 0-16, or sorry, 0-8 or 0-10 against top 10 teams since 2016. He's got a lot of work to do as far as being competitive on those Ohio States and Michigans of the world. But I mean, they're still a good team. They're not a great team, but they're a good team. But it looked like it might be a competitive game after the first quarter. But Michigan in the second half just absolutely blew the brakes off of them. Completely well-rounded performance offensively, defensively. Obviously, we mentioned the running backs can't stop. They had a double-headed monster there. The defenses are great. They're very well coached. So I think from top to bottom, that's probably the best performance. Again, as you mentioned, could have gone with Tennessee, beating Alabama at home. But good Lord, I mean, if we went right down to it, we could throw Tennessee, Alabama in like half of the questions that we had.
Yeah.
Today, so.
Exactly. This is just such a crazy weekend. I see back on the Penn State. What was I saying last week for Penn State? What was I calling them? Was it Tennessee or something like that? I can't remember.
Something like that.
I kept mispronouncing Penn State every time I brought them up. I can't remember what it was called. It was like I was saying something every time I would say.
No, you're saying like Tennessee State or something.
It was like Tennessee State.
I think the state's actually Pennsylvania there.
Green jacket, gold jacket. Who gives a shit? I said Penn State was a fraud. I knew this team was not as good as they were supposed to be based off of Sean Clifford. He's not that good. I watched that game against Purdue earlier in the year. I think it was week 2. Let's find out. Week 1. That game right there it gave me everything I needed to know about Penn State and Sean Clifford. They struggled very, very heavily, and Purdue gave them that game. Heck, Purdue should have beat them. Sean Clifford is not good. The dude's been there for like 5 years. Like you're a senior, I'm pretty sure. He's a senior. Yeah, he's a senior. He's been there for fucking ever. This dude should be going nuts in the system. Like you are Penn State. You are this team. You've been there forever. And he's not good.
Let me ask you this. So like we talked about going 8-4, 9-3 at certain Power 5 teams and that being acceptable, right? So Penn State, they're kind of weird. So like they've got multiple undefeated seasons in their history, multiple seasons where like they didn't, they weren't selected by the AP back in the day when that's what it was to win the national title under Paterno. They've got a really storied history. They won national titles in 82 and 86, I believe,
Yeah.
the 2 years they won national titles. So with that said, now we're pretty far removed from all the Sandusky stuff. They've gotten recruits in. They're kind of back to where they should be in that top 15 echelon. Do you think if James Franklin continues to not be able to win against top 10 teams, but still finishes, 10-2, 9-3, do you think he's on the hot seat? What are your thoughts? I know we're going to get into that hot seat discussion, but I don't feel like he's necessarily on the hot seat right now. But do you think if he keeps not being able to win those games, does he move to the hot seat? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so. I think he's going to end up in like a Gundy situation where he's going to do too good to get fired, but not good enough to win a championship. And I mean, Penn State, if you look at all the years with Paterno, it's not like he was winning championships every year. They had their ups and down years. Penn State has a good track record of holding on to coaches, as long as they're, staying somewhat competitive over the course of time. Unfortunately, how that Paterno situation ended, because he, really was one of the best coaches of all time.
Sure.
I'll play devil's advocate because I disagree. I think I think the complete opposite. I don't think it's not going to be this year, maybe not even next year, but look at Harbaugh in Michigan. They wanted that man out like 2 years ago, like just because he couldn't beat Ohio State. Like that's one team. They didn't even care about the rest of the schedule. It's because he couldn't beat Ohio State. That's one team.
Now he's in. He's locked in now. It's crazy.
Yeah, now he's locked in and they're sold. Which is cool. Good for him. Good for Michigan. I like it. But if he's not beating their rivals either, then like what's the point of keeping him? You could bring anybody in that's going to beat all the other teams on your schedule. Like who are they playing? Purdue, they almost lost. Ohio, blowout. Auburn's absolutely terrible this year. Central Michigan, terrible. Northwestern, also terrible. They got blown out by Michigan. That's a team you bring a coach in to win. Minnesota, nobody cares. Ohio State, Indiana, nobody cares. Maryland, nobody cares. Rutgers, nobody cares. Michigan State, that's 3 teams. Those are the 3 games you're brought in to win every year. That's it. That's really the teams that they care about.
Sure.
And they're not beating any of these teams, especially not this year. They'll probably beat Michigan State.
My argument to that is that Penn State is not Michigan or Ohio State. I don't think
they're not.
has that high of expectations for
But
Penn
they're
State.
right there underneath that tier, and they recruit really well. They have some of the best offensive linemen in the country, year in, year out. They have some of the best tight ends in the country, year in, year out. They got great defensive talent. For some reason, unbeknownst to me, they cannot recruit a quarterback ever. I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's go to the transfer portal and get you a quarterback that is from a team that is not a freshman, that is not a backup to your fucking Sean Clifford, because that dude is like a deer in the headlights at some points in the time. Bring somebody in who can run this damn offense and is going to put points on the board. Like, they got great running backs. You had Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't get it. They have everything outside of a QB. Like, that's their one thing. It's always QB. And I don't get it. So you need to win these games, and they're not. So I think he could be on the hot seat. Like I said, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but it very, very well possible.
He was the last and potentially only person ever to win football at Vanderbilt. So I think that's kind of kept him there for a while too.
he is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. He's a good coach. I like his attitude. I like his style. He's a player guy. He's kind of one of those guys like Dabo, invests in the players. He cares about the team. But is he the guy that's going to get you over that hump? And see, I think a lot of teams they're scared. They have this guy that's going to give them the consistent 9 wins, right? I think they are potentially scared to let go of said guy for a chance to get over that hump. Are you going to keep going with what you're comfortable getting every year? 9 wins every year?
It's like an Oklahoma State situation where, like, granted, Penn State does have a storied history, but like Shelton was bringing up with, like, they didn't get the death penalty, but they got really close to getting the death penalty. They should have gotten it. If SMU got it for like paying players or whatever they're doing, Penn State should have definitely got it for the stuff they had going on there. So, but I mean, he's building that program up from essentially nothing. I can't remember. Was it Bill O'Brien who took over immediately? Yeah. He did a good job with it, but then he left to the NFL. Franklin, to me, has done a really good job. I mean, but if you look at like a team like Oklahoma State, I don't know why that comparison comes up to
Oklahoma State's in a different situation now. Texas and OU are leaving. Like, why would you? There's no point in firing now. You have no competition. Like, you're it. It's Baylor. Baylor is your only competition in that entire conference. And BYU.
But I mean, when Texas and OU are there, I mean, like, I know Gundy's got more wins against OU than most OSU coaches, but I mean, he's really only beat them like 4 times.
Yeah,
he's
okay,
been there for like 15 years.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we probably could have made this argument. Yeah, probably. Are you comfortable with winning this, or do you want to move on and maybe bring somebody in that can change the culture, maybe get you past this hump? But at this point, there's no point. Like, Texas and OU are leaving, you have a straight shot at the Big 12 championship every year. Every year.
Well, I mean, I think right now you're right, but I think a few years from now, it's going to be like, because OSU might get to the playoffs a few times. Like, realistically, they could.
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to do. They're not going to do anything when they get there. So then it's going to be like, do we want to keep him because we can't win in the playoffs? Like, I feel like that's going to come up in probably the next 5 years.
OSU,
you know what's wild? You know what's wild though about the Big 12? Like, there was so many years where it's like they had teams, but they kept kind of killing each other, and they didn't have a playoff, so that kept them out of the initial early years of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But even since they've instituted a playoff, it's like still they're not really represented. Like, OU was there a little bit, but they're not really represented still in the playoffs. So it's interesting to see how that dynamic comes into play. Like, there was that 1 year where TCU and it was when Art Briles was still at Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor and TCU were very good that year. I remember that year.
And they killed each other. I was like, oh my God, like freaking.
Once they move to 12, I can see Big 12 having 2 teams in. I think every conference could arguably have minimum 2 teams in a 12-team format.
Oh, yeah.
Minimum. But I think what they're doing is it's like guaranteed the 5 conference champs. Like, no matter what your record is, if you're a conference champ, you're getting in, guaranteed. Which is kind of weird because you could be in like 3-loss conference champ and now you're in the playoffs, which is cool. I respect it because you might have a bad year and now you're in the playoffs and now you get your shit together and you might be able to upset somebody, which I like it. I really do. So you got 5 teams there, and then I think you're doing. Was it like, I think the 3 best like at-large teams or something like that? So like it would be like the next best 3 teams that aren't conference champs, which would probably be the SEC runner-up. So say Alabama wins that year, like Georgia, right? A 1-loss Georgia, whoever's the runner-up for the Big 10, Michigan or Ohio State. So there's 2. And then depending on the ACC's looking, maybe, Clemson, Florida State. We're fucking back. I know it. We're back. So it could be us, could be Clemson. I don't know. So that's like, what is that? 8 teams right there. And now you got a handful of other teams you can pick from, which is, 2, 3-loss teams that aren't in that conversation. SEC is guaranteed 3. I already know it. Maybe even 4. It's going to be crazy.
What do you guys think happens to the Pac-12? Do you think like the Big 12 might steal some of their schools, and the Big 10 might steal what they have left with USC and UCLA remaining? I can see the Pac-12 folding. Like, I could see
the Big 10's pulling Washington and I think it was USC.
That's so crazy from like a geographical standpoint. Some of these moves, man. Like, can you imagine the disadvantage that you face flying all the way across the country for all the road games? Like, that sucks, dude.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of is if, like, say you got like 3 road games in a row, like I would set your schedule up to be where like you do like 3 home games in a row, 3 road games, and you stay over there for all 3 weeks, right?
Sure.
You find one place to practice, and you're traveling short. They would have to change up that the West Coast teams' schedules to fit something like that, because they're at a severe disadvantage. Severe. That's
why I think the Pac-12 is in trouble, because I think with UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten, I think the Big Ten might be like, let's make this fair and pull Oregon and Stanford so they don't have to travel as much. I could easily see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to reorganize I seen another thing. It was like they have 3 divisions in the Big Ten. It's like a Big Ten West, Central, and East, which would be interesting. So if they did that, depending on how many Pac-12 schools you pull in, you could have a whole West division. So you have maybe 3-4 Pac-12 teams, and like Iowa.
Jaden, what do you do with that though? Like, what do you do for like a championship game? Like, what do you? You just take the two teams with the divisions with the best records, and that's your championship game.
Yeah, I don't know. It's say you got three divisions.
A 3-team playoff. One gets a bye week.
if you got three divisions and each one's got one loss, I mean, you got to really kind of deep dive into who lost each game, or did you lose to each other?
I got an idea. The third finishing team has to play whatever the number one ranked FCS team is, and that's
honestly, I think the number one FCS team should get a shot in the FBS playoff, especially at 12, like 100%.
South Dakota State, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, like make it an 11-team FBS, and then that 12th spot could be an FCS. You don't got to put them at 12. I mean, can
you imagine the ratings if it was Jackson State and then you got prime time up there coaching?
Mm-hmm. Dude, Jackson State's looking good. Let's see where they at.
They're
6-0.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
I've looked at this before, the FCS coaches poll. So you got South Dakota State sitting at number 1, 6-1.
They just beat North Dakota State Saturday, so.
North Dakota State's sitting at 4 at 5-2. You got Jackson.
Bro, North Dakota State's won like 8 of the last 10 national titles. That's ridiculous. Like, move the fuck up. What are you doing?
And then you got Jackson State 6-0 sitting at 6. You got multiple, 2 and 1 loss teams ahead of them, and they're just not getting any love.
Yeah.
I hate Dion, but I love him at the same time. We've talked about this before. I cannot stand how he stole our number 1 recruit.
Yeah.
He finessed that man, and we can use him. Our secondary needs help.
Did you guys see the handshake?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It was was it Grambling State or Alabama State? It was Jackson State versus Alabama State. Eddie Robinson Jr., who his dad is a famous coach at Grambling State for all those years. They went to have their handshake at the end of the game, and Dion he shook his hand, and then he went to like dap him up, give him a hug, and they pushed him off of him. And I guess he didn't like the way that at pregame he was like walking through the warm-ups and everything, and just I guess. Big time and everybody, I don't know, but it's kind of
better watch out. Dion will fucking RKO you in mid.
It made him look like a sore loser.
Yeah, 100%. Sure. I really like what Dion's doing. I do too. He's building that culture. He's building the HBCUs up. I love it. I really like it. I think he honestly every like college football Florida State like group I'm in. I cannot tell you how many people I see calling for Dion to replace Mike Norvell. It's crazy. People are smoking crack.
It's kind of stupid, but I mean,
I'll get into it on the team talk, but we'll do most disappointing performance, and then we'll take a little quick break. I got a little bathroom break, but anybody want to go first?
I got James Madison. Finally jumping into the top 25 and then immediately losing to Georgia Southern first time coming in. And they gave up a lot of points. I mean, 45 points is a lot of points to give up.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of people have high hopes. Like every year you kind of get that underdog team and everybody's kind of rooting for them. I mean, I was like, I would love to see James Madison do good. And then like, as soon as they get up there, they're just knocked right back out. So I mean that was my most disappointing performance of the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, man, talk about some good fans. I mean, obviously they're just coming up from the FCS level, but James Madison's fans travel fucking well and they're very loyal. So like Harrisonburg, up where James Madison's in, pretty small mountain town there. But when I was stationed at Langley, we used to work security at the William and Mary games, and they're FCS too. And James Madison would come down there and just beat the brakes off of them. And there was James Madison fans there than William and Mary fans, and it was just impressive. Like they just would stack the entire visitors side. I've never seen anything like it. So I'm excited to see how that translates to the FBS level for sure.
That reminds me of our high school games.
Yeah.
We would, oh my God, our high school. So, so we're from Ponca City, like very northern Oklahoma, right? And we was in this 6A conference. We had
6A? Holy crap.
We were in a 6A conference, and this town is like a population of like not even 40,000.
That's nuts.
And we're in a conference with Stillwater, Tulsa Union, which is the biggest school in Tulsa. Edmond North,
where the Stoops twins played.
A bunch of big schools. So like Tulsa Union recruits. This is like an all-black school, and we're
no, that's a Booker T.
I know there's Booker T, right? Yes, Booker T. And so, like, we're just a small, like, almost like we're a farming oil town. Our offensive line, we have not had a good offensive line in fucking forever. We just, there's nobody big enough in our school to play offensive line. There's no talent. We hired this guy from Arkansas to come coach our football team. They paid this dude a lot of money. And yeah, I like the guy. I can't remember what his name was. What was his
Coach
fucking guy's
Allen.
name?
Coach Allen.
Coach Allen. He oh my god, this guy was something. He was a what did he taught a class. What
Like
the fuck?
history or something, like something like all the.
That's the typical coach. Yeah, history.
He
It's
taught
always
some bullshit history class. I remember
civics.
having him. I had him in class. Terrible fucking teacher. He was a solid coach. You know, he was really trying to change the culture, like getting us like good promotion, like film and ads,
weight
and all
room, and yeah.
like we had a brand new weight room. There's nothing the guy could have done. We have no talent. And we're playing these teams that are recruiting players to come to their school in high school, which is illegal. But like you can't really prove it. And we're getting blown out. Like we might win one game a year. So like it was just crazy. And then like every team we'd play, the whole visitor stand would just be absolutely fucking packed with whoever we're playing because they know they're just gonna come in and stomp the shit out of
Remember
us.
that upset against Booker T though? That was like the craziest game like in Ponca history. Like the band was out like playing like
it was homecoming and we beat Booker T at homecoming. Our stadium was packed. It was crazy, like absolutely crazy. We had no business even holding this team's jockstrap, and we beat them. It was incredible.
Awesome. I grew up in basketball country, so I can't really relate. I mean, you know, there's some good football teams where I'm from, but the culture is just not there like it is in like your Texas and Oklahoma and Florida and California and places like that, you know. So.
I mean, we got the culture, but our team sucked. Like they had to make a whole separate Super 6A conference, and we didn't make it. Like we're not good enough to be in that. They took all those good teams, and
we're still not good in this regular 6A.
We're hosting our first home playoff game in 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have like a 3-4 record. That's how bad we are. Anyways, I just
that's funny.
Small tangent for visiting fans. People visit us very well, so I get it. I get it. When your team's cooking, you know, you want to go see them stomp your rivals out. I 100% get it.
What was your most disappointing performance there, Jaden?
Penn State. I knew they were bad, so it's not a disappointing performance in my eyes because I knew they weren't good, but it was just completely
how bad they lost.
Thoroughly. How bad they lost. They did not do anything well. 10 first downs in a 4-quarter game.
Disgusting.
Like
you should look at the drive chart. It's probably gonna be like 3 and out, 3 and out, like, 3 and out.
That's 2 first downs a quarter if you average it out. That's like the possession. We already looked at that when we was talking about Quorum. Like it's just bad. Like they weren't favored in this game at all. I don't know what the fuck's going on here with this 55% in the was that third quarter? What was it at third quarter? Yeah, 16-17. That's when they got their first lead, and then it was just downhill from there. There's terrible performance. Sean Clifford's dog water. You might as well put the backup in. Terrible. A lot of yellow there. Terrible. What was yours?
I'm gonna be a homer here and go with some personal stuff. I'm gonna go with Liberty. So they had their homecoming week on Saturday, and they hosted Garner Webb, who's the only FCS team they played all year, and it was their closest win of the year. It came down to the very last.
Okay.
Yeah, it came down to the very last drive there to get a stop to beat Garner Webb. Now I will say, even though Garner Webb's 2-4, they are a really good FCS team. If you look at their losses, they're all to like FBS teams. They all actually played Coastal Carolina extremely close earlier in the year. They're a very capable FCS team. But that said, and the other thing with Liberty is they've been playing with their third and fourth string quarterbacks the last 3 weeks, which really sucks because I'll tell you this: if Liberty has their first string quarterback or second string Salter, I was talking about earlier how a lot of the transfer portal guys end up in some of these smaller group of 6 schools. So Liberty's a prime example. So Brewer, our first string quarterback, he got hurt like 5 minutes into the first game of the season. He transferred from Baylor. Salter is a transfer from Tennessee. He's played most of the year. He was the one that was the starter at Wake Forest when Liberty almost beat Wake Forest on Wake Forest's homecoming. That game, I was at that game. It came down to the very last play. Pretty much, Hugh Freeze went for it on a 2-point conversion, didn't get it. It was about a yard short. Otherwise, that would have been a huge upset. But yeah, it's just, even with a third and fourth string quarterback, very disappointing to only beat an FCS team by 1 point. If you look at Liberty's wins during the season and even their one loss, like, you can't find a team in football that plays more to their competition than they do. Like, you got every game's close except for maybe the Old Dominion game and the UMass game. Other than that,
UMass is a blowout.
Yeah, other than that, it's all just play into the level of
coin flip almost.
So they have BYU next week, and everybody was really excited about that because, you got the Mormons versus the evangelical Christians, a huge battle of the religious thing, right? But honestly, without Salter playing quarterback, I don't think Liberty stands a chance even hosting the game. They've played really bad at home this year. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm hoping.
How long is he out for?
So he got surgery, so he might be out for most of the year. It was
That's
on his.
tough.
I don't know if it was on his groin. I believe it was on his groin, but he they didn't really give a timeline. They're kind of keeping that close to the vest. Brewer may be back for the BYU game. Not for sure, but again, he played 5 minutes of the first game, so who knows how good he is? I have no idea.
Yeah, he's got no game time play.
Exactly. So for me, that's the disappointment. As a Liberty fan of the week. They won, but it was about to burn the house down on that one. So
that's tough coming from Malik Willis to.
Oh God.
That's I can't imagine. That's hard. That's hard. We'll dive more into, I'm sure, Liberty on the team talk coming up.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a good pick actually. I've been kind of keeping an eye on Liberty because I know you're a Liberty fan and I know you post a lot, so I kind of keep an eye on Liberty a little bit. 6-1's hella respectable. I mean, looking at their schedule. Yeah, they could easily, if they got no QB, lose probably these 3 games very easily. BYU's really solid. Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, Arkansas is bad this year, but that dude's an athlete. He's a baller. And UConn's not that bad. Virginia Tech's absolutely terrible. And New Mexico State.
Moore's got him playing a lot better, especially defensively. I will say, I'm going to be at that game. I got tickets to that game, actually. It's only about 2.5 hours up the road for me. But yeah, it's Virginia Tech's pretty terrible. But again, you're playing an ACC school. They got the talent edge. You don't really know what's going to happen there. So
it's in Virginia Tech. That's a pretty.
No,
nice
it's in Lynchburg. It's in Lynchburg.
Oh wait, yeah, no, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, never mind. If you guys were in Virginia Tech, it'd be tough. New Mexico State is barely a football team, so
yeah. So the big thing for Liberty, though, is, like you mentioned, they're bowl eligible. This is the 4th year they've been a full-fledged FBS member, and this is the 4th year in a row they've been bowl eligible, and they're 3-0 in bowl games. 2 years ago, they had that barn burner against Coastal Carolina, who was undefeated, ranked 12th in the country, and then, Liberty was 10-1 in that game, too. Their only loss that year was to NC State in Raleigh by 1 point, and Liberty missed 3 field goals in that game. So they, very well could have been undefeated that year. So, Hugh Freeze has done a really good job turning that program around and turning them into something, as a team that can compete every year with ACC teams. So I'll be interested to see. He says that he's happy in Lynchburg, but I'll be interested to see if he.
Y'all need to be giving that man everything he wants and then some.
Oh, you should go look at how much he makes. He's fine. He's getting paid like an ACC coach, bro. That's why the Sun Belt didn't want Liberty, because Liberty's got more money than all of them schools combined.
Oh, $4 million a year?
Yeah, bro. He's getting paid
through 2028.
Yep.
Damn.
Not a game.
So I mean, even if he did leave, you guys still have to pay him for 4 more years. Oh no, or is that more so play until if you fire a coach?
That's it. That's more if you fire him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the team that he would go to would pick up the rest of that salary. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
I mean, that's a big salary to pick up for a team that he might be going to, especially if it's not a big school.
Sure. It's going to take
So-
something special for him to leave. I mean, if you remember, he was the coach of Ole Miss. He beat Nick Saban in Alabama twice, was doing very good things, and then he had those, a couple of the bad things happen there with some shady recruiting, and then like I think he was banging some prostitutes too. So
Hey, I
there's
mean, if
that
you
whole
ain't
thing.
cheating, you ain't trying. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
You do what you got to do to be Bama. I'd
Yeah.
be selling the farm.
There was the whole Tunstall thing, putting on a gas mask, smoking
Oh,
pot.
I remember that. That dude's a baller. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah,
He's a solid LT. Is he still at Miami?
I think so.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head,
I'm
actually.
gonna go tinkle. Small little break.
Do it.
All right. Yeah, I haven't been keeping a lot of track of Liberty, but 6-1, they're still doing good without Malik. How do you feel about him in Tennessee? Do you think he'll end up starting there? Or do you think they'll end up drafting somebody? All the mock drafts have them drafting somebody.
So I was upset when he went because he was projected to be the first quarterback taken from that draft class. And then, you watch Kenny Pickett get drafted first. I think he's like 21 overall to Pittsburgh. And then, we watch Malik slip through the second round into the third round. But honestly, the more that I think about it, the more that I think that it was a better situation for him. His arm strength is second to none for everybody from that draft class. His scrambling ability is what really made him his money. But he's got some accuracy issues, and there's his decisions at times aren't always the best. So I think that being able to play behind what's his name for Tennessee,
Tannehill.
Yeah, Tannehill. Tannehill's not the best quarterback, but he's a game manager for Tennessee. He can lead them to victory. So I think playing behind Tannehill for a few years and kind of getting that experience will be valuable to him. So I think in the long run it'll turn out to be good. And they're coached by Mike Vrabel. I mean, you got a great coach there. You got a program that was really good last year, and they're decent this year. So I don't know. I think it'll in the long term it'll be good for him. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he really his big thing is his decision making. Like he had this tendency at Liberty to pretty much if his first option wasn't open, he's going to take off scrambling.
Oh yeah.
And I think once he gets that figured out and he learns how to make his reads, I think he'll be a really good quarterback.
Sure, absolutely.
Nick, what do you know?
I know a lot.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just busting your balls.
Talking about Malik Willis.
Oh, Malik.
Yeah, Tannehill is not it. He's not the move. They need it. That offense is boring, man. They cannot pass at all.
Yeah.
If they had a passing QB, Tennessee would be dangerous.
Yeah, we were just talking about Malik. When I was telling him I was kind of upset when he got drafted in the third round. He was projected to be the number one pick from as far as quarterbacks are concerned from that class. But I think the more that I look at it, it's probably a positive for him because while he does have the best arm strength of any QB from that class and his scrambling and everything, he does have some accuracy and some decision making questions. So I think playing behind Tannehill and under Mike Vrabel in that system, I think for a couple of years will give him the experience and time that he needs to kind of understand the game. So probably a good thing in the long run.
I think he did get lucky. He didn't get drafted by a team that needed a QB now. Like look at Kenny Pickett. If that man comes in concussion, the dude didn't even get to play the whole game. Like his first start out. Pittsburgh is a dumpster fire. Who else? Trey Lance out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields not doing very well. That's a run first team.
Yeah.
They have no weapons. Let's see who else. That's the big three there.
There was some talks going into the draft that Carolina might pick him up, and shit. I mean, the way they're looking right now, that might have been a better pick. But honestly, I didn't want them to pick him because I thought that we needed to focus on the defensive line and the offensive line before we drafted a quarterback.
100%. We can touch on NFL a little bit after this cup. We usually do. We'll touch on NFL and we kind of briefly touch on our fantasy teams because we're in a fantasy league together. But all right, so we got favorite team talk next. So who wants to start?
I'll let you start. We'll get the bat out of the way first.
I am hot. Let me pull up our fucking shit house of a team that we got going on. Oh my god.
Wait, did we skip bounce back performance?
That's at the end, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Or we can throw it in now if you guys want.
No, that's good. I had it on my list, and I didn't know.
Okay. Yeah, I have it at the bottom of my list
Okay.
after hot
Good.
seat coaches. Okay, so I've said it the last 2 weeks. We should be undefeated. We are playing like absolute dog shit. It's like I don't even know how to explain it, man. We have 3 different teams going here. We have the team that I don't count Duquesne. That's a high school team.
Duquesne. Duquesne.
Or Duquesne. Yeah, whatever the fuck you say. I call it Duquesne. It just sounds better to me. So that don't count. That was, I'm glad we had that game before LSU, because if we didn't, we probably wouldn't beat LSU. So we have the team that, early persevered, beat LSU and Louisville, right? Then we had the team that came out and absolutely handled Boston College. To be fair, Boston College has a plethora of injuries on the offensive line. And
They did beat Louisville, though.
Yeah, they did. And we have a vastly superior defensive line than their offensive line. So that one completely makes sense.
Sure.
And then we have the fucking third team that comes out and plays 1 quarter against these 2 teams, and we still lose. We play 1 quarter of good football, and we still play them close, and we still lose. And then we got Clemson. We played, I would say, two quarters of good football, and we still lose. If we had a fucking kicker, this would be a tie game. So for some reason, we have a kicker on our fucking roster that does not kick at all. Fucking Fitzgerald. The dude is, our coach has zero confidence in this man. We go for it on 4th down every time, which, I'm cool with this. Just statistically, it makes sense. Going for it, I get it. Especially if you're on the opposing half. I'm cool with going for it on 4th down. Especially if you're, maybe past the 40 and into the opposing territory. I'm fine with it, because if you don't make it, it's arguably better than a punt, because if you punt it and it goes in an end zone, they're sitting there at the 25 anyways. So you're giving up maybe 10 yards. Fine with it. Fine. But if we had a kicker, because we went for it on 4th down twice that I remember in their territory, and we didn't make it, if we had those 2 field goals, it would have been a tie game, I'm pretty sure. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Yeah, it would have been a tie game. Also, we need a fucking defensive coordinator. I cannot state how many times this year, not even in this one game, how many times I've seen players completely out of position on the defensive side of the ball. Every game I've watched this year, I've never seen it. I've never seen it on any other team, how wildly out of position and how wildly open opposing receivers and running backs are in our secondary, just out there in the fucking oblivion, just in the ether, just running free, just like they don't exist to us on our defensive front. They're just out there, just, oh, look at me, 20-yard catch. We get so confused on like a mesh or some sort of crossing route, like it'll be the linebacker and the cornerback converge on one receiver, and then the running back or receiver is just out there on the flat or out there on the sideline, just standing there. Nobody to be seen. So Adam Fuller is fucking dog shit. Terrible defensive coordinator. Please fucking get that man off this team. If we had a defensive coordinator, like it's not gonna solve all of our problems, but that's gonna solve a very, very big hole we have going on with that. We have a lot of injuries going on. We have no fucking defensive line to speak of at this point. We have so many injuries on our defensive line. We are so thin. Jared Verse comes back. He's hurt again. Fabian Lovett's still not back in. Ray gets hurt. We are so thin at defensive tackle. It's not even funny. So that's why Will Shipley has, the dude's like the second coming of Christ when he plays us. It's every year. This man just gouges us. That's another thing. We have no run defense all year. All 3 of these losses we could have won if we can stop the run. The last drive of Wake Forest, they run the ball all the way up the field on us. NC State run the ball all the way up the field on us last drive. Clemson run the ball all the way up the field on us all game. Not even the last drive. We came back pretty far down. I think we was down by 20, and we came back and put it within a 1-score game. So if we had a defensive coordinator who's not letting our fucking players get so confused in coverages. They have no idea. It literally looks like they have no idea what's going on out there. They're so confused. They're so lost. They have no idea what they're doing. We have talent. We have the talent. Our offense came out cooking. Offensive side of the ball, I think we're good. Early in the season, I thought the offense was our issue. I really did. I was like, okay, our offensive might be a little shaky. And then I'll transition into Mike Norvell's play calling. His play calling is fucking pedestrian at best. It's bad. I could pull up a Madden playbook from fucking NCAA or NFL 2008 and pick better play calls. It's terrible. I like some of his play calls. I do. I like it. But then we'll do like little bubble screens when they know it's coming. That we'll do a little not wide receiver. We'll do a little halfback screen. They know it's coming. Just tackle for loss. We'll lose like 5 yards. They know it's coming. He still calls it. We'll be we'd run the ball twice. We'd throw the ball, miss, and now we're going for it on 4th down. It's 4th and 2, and we've had so much success running the ball. Just run the fucking ball. Like, we are running so well. Like, our running backs are averaging like 6 yards a carry every game. It's crazy. Like, if you're in that short of a spot, like, to get your first down and you're not able to throw the ball, just run it. And then we're on the goal line, or not even on the goal line. We're in the like short, like I think it was on like 5 or 6. We do like 3 fucking fades to the end zone for Johnny Wilson in a row. Like, why are you going to call the same play 3 times in a row to the same player? Just run the fucking ball. That's all we've been doing all game. We were doing it very well. Like, we was killing Clemson with the run. Stop abandoning the run when it's working. That's my thing. Like, he gets too cute down in the red zone with his play calling. It's like I think it was against Clemson, or not Clemson, LSU. We was on like the 1. We got stuffed 3 times. He goes to throw a pitch and we fumble it. And then they go back and then they almost beat us. And then we blocked their extra point or some shit. I think we blocked their extra point on that one. The last fucking kick of the game. Like, we are giving away so much, and we're letting our foot off the gas when we're scoring. It's just bad. It's bad play calling. It's bad coaching decisions. It's bad defensive schemes. It's bad. Like, it's bad. Like, we have the talent. We have the players. Norvell is the guy. I love Norvell. I love his leadership. I love what he's doing for our culture. Like, we are completely different than we were last year. Started 0-4 last year. We're 4-0. We started out 4-0, and then we've shit the bed the last 3 games. We could have won all 3 of these games. Very, very well could have won all 3 of these games.
Sure.
It's just depressing. It's very depressing. I think getting a good defensive coordinator would be a really good start. And penalties. Fucking fucking bash my head against the fucking everything. We are so undisciplined, and that's been another huge thing since Jimbo was there, like after we won our national championship, and then since he's left, is penalties. We are so undisciplined. It's so frustrating. And it also, to be honest with you, the ACC refs this year are fucking horrendous.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And they have something against us, because the same shit they'll be calling on us, I'll be watching, and they will not call it on the other team. They hate us. They hate FSU. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't understand. It's like
ACC
holding.
is like, I feel like they usually have just terrible officiating.
But some good things, because I've been hammering the team. I've been hammering us like really bad. We are miles and miles and miles ahead of where we were last year. There's so much improvement, and I'm very happy with what we've been showing. Like, yeah, we did lose our last 3 games. That was our gauntlet on the year. But we got Georgia Tech next week. Very, very winnable game at Miami. We should smoke Miami this year, and if we beat Miami and Florida, I'm cool. We can lose every other game. I'm fine with it. Florida will be a little tough. Look at Syracuse. We'll see. I think we can beat Syracuse. Let's see what else. Like I said, Norvell, we'll love the guy. He's our guy. I'm happy with the coaching hire. He's getting us on the right track. He's building us up. He's bringing in good recruits. Even when we're losing, we're still getting people committing to our team. We're getting the players bought into the team. We're not giving up. That's the biggest. It's another huge thing. Even in the fourth quarter, when we're down by 20, we're still not giving up, and that's a vast improvement from last year when we were getting blown out by teams we should not be losing to, and people are giving up.
That's a culture thing. That's big.
Exactly. And so that's why I know we are on the right track. I know we should be winning these games. I know we should have been able to win all 3 of these games. I know we could be undefeated. I know next year is going to be better. Like I've watched every game this year. I know it. I've seen it. I know it. I know what we're doing. I know what we got. We have the talent. If we can get our big players to come back next year and not declare for the draft and not fucking get drafted, because that's been another big thing we've had going on is we've got good talent. They haven't had a good year and they just declare for the draft and they don't get drafted. Like
Sure.
I don't get it. Like what the fuck are you doing?
I'm a Duke basketball fan. I can relate to that.
So I'll end off on that. I like what I see. I'm happy. Even if 4-3, I'm happy.
I'll go real quick just because I got 2 teams. I'm not gonna focus in really too hard on. I kind of talked about Liberty for a while, so I'll talk about Duke. Duke's kind of in the same situation as FSU. So right now we're 4-3. We started 4-0, right? The last 3 losses were all very winnable games. Our worst loss is 8 points on the road at Kansas. That's not bad. The Georgia Tech loss was 3 points in overtime. We just couldn't get any points in overtime. And then obviously, as we alluded to earlier, the Carolina loss came down to the very last play almost of the game. So, I mean, for what Duke has been the last few years, I'm extremely pleased. Mike Elko has come into Durham. He came out of Texas A&M as a coordinator and has just really turned the culture around. I'll always be forever grateful for what David Cutcliffe did for Duke, because Duke was at a point where they, would go multiple seasons without winning a conference game. And we would have the games that we could win against FCS teams and they would still lose those games. They were essentially like Kansas was the last few years. So since Daniel Jones left, it's been kind of tough. That was the last time we were really, we had like a nice 5-year in a row streak of where we were in bowl games and winning bowl games and everything. So this is definitely a bowl eligible team. If you look on the last half of that schedule, they have, Virginia Tech at home. They have Boston College, Miami, I think is a winnable game. There's quite a few winnable games there on the back half of that schedule. So at the very least, this team will get to 6-6. They'll win. They're pretty well balanced offensively and defensively. I would say if I had to pick one side of the ball, they're a little better on the defense. I know that may not come through with some of the point totals they've given up, but Carolina is arguably one of the top 5 offenses in football. So to only give up 38 to them is pretty good. So I'm pretty pleased. They could very well be 7-0 or 6-1 right now. So I can't complain too much. These are growing pains that every team has to go through when they're kind of getting things turned around. So that's all I'll really say about Duke. I'm more mad at Liberty than I'm at Duke. And I know that sounds crazy because Liberty's in their 4th year in FBS, but I say that because I know the quality of a coach that Hugh Freeze is. Hugh Freeze could coach anywhere in the country. He's proven that. And part of our struggles, I think, with Liberty are his play calling is so suspect. Some of the decisions he makes, I'll say the Wake Forest game, going forward on the 2-point conversion there to win in a raucous away environment during their homecoming. Love that call. A lot of people hated it. They said, kick the field goal and play for overtime. But no way, man. You're on the road. You're playing an ACC team. You have a chance to do something historic. Go for 2. I love that call. But sometimes, man, he makes some calls that are just absolutely, head scratching. So just for Saturday, for instance, there's one time where it was like 4th and 8, and we're on the 49-yard line, like our own 49-yard line, and he goes for it. Like, what are you doing? Like, I understand you're playing an FCS defense, but they've been lighting you up all day. Like, don't do that. Just punt it.
Yeah.
And then there's one time where it was like a 3rd and 15. You clearly need 15 yards, and he does like a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage. Like, what are you doing? Like, we need positive yards, not negative yards. And, it'll be 3rd and 1, a critical 3rd and 1 play, and he'll air it out. Like, just stuff like that. Like, you just run the ball.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's the same shit we be doing. Like it makes.
Hate it.
I think they'd be trying to get too fucking cute.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Sometimes you just gotta,
I got another thing, like the whole fucking I don't remember exactly what you said. I'm a little drunk, but when we went for we tried to do a punter-rooski on Clemson again,
I
and
remember that.
they did not fall for it. We got kind of close. We got kind of close, and I was like, you
That's
know what,
funny.
I respect the call, but they knew it was coming. We were down pretty big.
It's a great coffee. Get it, and it's a terrible coffee.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
think we've ran that since then. That might be if I'm mistaken. I don't think it's been done since then.
I'll only say one more thing about Liberty, and then I'll move on and let Nick kind of say his piece. The thing I've been most happy with, I can't complain too much because they've been playing the last few weeks with third and fourth string quarterbacks. It's just going to be a struggle. Those guys aren't prepared. Thit's ready to play at that level yet. It's showing very much. The defense is very bend but don't break, right? So like the defense, it's very frustrating. The run defense is excellent. Like I think we gave up 25 yards the whole game rushing to Wake Forest, which is great. But they're very bend don't break. So like they'll play like a zone defense. So they'll give receivers like a lot of room and try to give up like 7 yards, but then get there before they get the first down or whatever. And that's so frustrating because there's so many times where receivers are just wide fucking open. Saturday, one play that comes to mind is it was a crucial play. We're winning the game and we're trying to keep Garner Webb from scoring, and it's 3rd and 23, and they're deep in their own territory, and we have a chance. It's 3rd and 23. You know what they're gonna do? Like
They picked it up.
They bring the house, and I'm like, dude, put 4 on the line and just bring everyone else, and almost like what are you doing?
Yeah.
And of course they pick up 30 yards, and I'm just like, I'm about ready to flip the table because I'm like, what are you doing? So just stuff like that.
Trying to get too cute.
Yeah. So I will say the kicker's the MVP of the whole team. Like literally, I'm not lying to you right now. There was a Wake Forest alumnus sat in front of me at the Wake Forest game, and by the third quarter he turned around. He's like, is that guy are they gonna return anything all day long against him? I'm like, nope, everyone's gonna hit the end zone, brother, and all day long. And he's been like that all year. So that guy's crushing it. So good job for him. That's all I get.
I wish we had a kicker, man. I wish. I still don't get why we have not held open tryouts on the fucking campus and try to get some soccer player because fuck, dude, that dude's kicked like 1 field goal all year.
Hey, y'all's women's soccer team is dominant. Get a women's soccer team.
Get somebody that can kick something like 40 yards max. I'm cool with anything.
There's gotta
like
be some girl from. Got to be some girl from Costa Rica on that campus somewhere that can just make
100%. If we're 40 yards plus, fuck it, we'll go for it. I'm fine with that. Inside the 40, you just you put somebody in there that. A punter, come on, anybody, anybody, open tryout. The crazy thing is they've talked about like every time they do kicking competitions in practice, our fucking kicker wins, and then we don't, and then he misses everything in the game. Like, or they just don't even let him kick it. Like they don't let this man kick at all. It's I'm a fucking. I just want to break some shit. All right, Nick. You're the only out of the 3 of us. You're the only team that's got some good. I mean, yeah, you're in Shelton's team 1, but your team won by a decent margin. Looked actually really well.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really big game for us because we had just progressively gotten worse like 3 weeks in a row. Like K-State was a pretty close game. Like we didn't look that bad. Like we didn't look great, but we weren't terrible. Then we get just destroyed by TCU. Then we don't even score against Texas.
Yeah, I'll pull up OU.
I was scared that we were going to just get blown out by Kansas and this was going to be just a really bad year. But now it looks like, we could maybe make a bowl game. Like, obviously, we're not probably going too far this season. But to finish with a winning record, I think is realistic and would be pretty good at this point.
Yeah, you guys definitely make a bowl game. I mean, you sit at 4 wins right now. You got at Iowa State next week. We've already talked about Iowa State in that dark alley. That could be that dark alley next week. I really want to be on OU's team next week. Iowa State's fucking terrifying for some reason. Baylor is actually decent, so that might be a tough game. West Virginia is actually kind of ass this year, which is surprising with JT Daniels. I really expected West Virginia to be really hot on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's definitely a winnable game. So I'm saying 1 win, I think you guys lose to Baylor. 2 wins. Probably gonna say you guys get beat by at least 14 by OSU, and then you guys beat Texas Tech. So 1, 2, 3. You guys, I'm thinking 7 wins on the end of the year, which after the amount of mass casualty losses you guys had with Lincoln Riley leaving, which is pretty respectable. 7 wins.
I mean, it's a good. I mean, in my opinion, it's like a decent first year for Venables. I mean, I know a lot of fans expected this to be just as good of a team, if not better. But you got to understand that like half of this team, if not more, was not on the team last year at this point, and then you get like a whole new defensive staff, like essentially, and then you lose Cale Gundy, so on offense. So you got to just kind of take what you could get at this point. So far, we've recruited really well. So I think next year we'll be doing pretty good, plus the transfer portal and all that. Plus, I mean, like the base team we got right now isn't that bad. I mean, add a few pieces, that could be a really good team.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost impossible to win with like the amount of loss of personnel and staff that you guys had. It's theoretically almost impossible to have the season you guys are expected to have from the fan base. OU fans are absolutely delusional. They're calling for Brett Venables to be fired already. There's multiple people I'm like friends with on Facebook. They'll be like talking shit on Venables and like calling for him to be fired. That is the dumbest thing you could do. We like Sheldon, we talked about this earlier in like an episode or 2 ago. Like hypothetically, say they fire Venables right now, like today. Who the fuck are they gonna hire?
I don't know.
You got Scott Frost.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the best dude on the market right now. Unless
what about proven Big 12 turnaround coach Matt Rule?
Actually, that would be a very, very good hire if they like hypothetically like today, like right fucking at 8:50 Central Time PM, they fire Brett Venables, and 8:52 they're on the phone with Matt Rule. Like that's. But you gotta look. So Matt Rule's like to me, I think he's more offensive schemed, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then Venables is in a Big 12. I would much rather have a defensive scheme guy because nobody in the Big 12 has fucking defense. Not one team has defense in the Big 12. It's all shootouts. That's it.
What if they got Matt Rule to be the offensive coordinator and then Brett Venables stays there to call the defense and be the head coach?
Like, that would be crazy.
They fire Levy. I mean, I think that'd be a good. I mean, Levy. He did show some signs on Saturday that he kind of knew what he was doing, and like he was mixing in these like direct snaps to the running back Eric Gray, and he was taking off. And then I mean Dylan was looking really good. I mean I think a big part of the reason OU struggled might be because Dylan got hurt. He was out most of the TCU game. Granted, he wasn't playing great before he came out, but then we go into TCU, he's not there. The guy that's in there, Bevel, he throws 36 yards. So I think that's a big factor into all of it. But sure. I mean, Jane's definitely right about OU fans being delusional. Like he saw it firsthand in the crowd. Like they just there's this clear face mask.
Oh, that's the thing. Oh my! I was gonna mention this earlier. This fucking guy. There's a guy. So we're sitting in this row, and there's a guy in front of us, or the row in front of us, down like 3 seats. So he's like right to the right of Nick. And there's this like face mask call that OU did. I think I don't know if it was a quarterback or whoever the fuck it was. They like drugged the dude down by his face mask. And the dude was like, no, there's no face mask. And they pulled up on the Jumbotron. You can clearly see they like yanked this dude's head back like this. Like he's like this. And then like he comes to the ground and he's like, no. He's like going nuts. And I'm like, I look at Nick and I look at that guy and I'm
like cracking up.
I was like, are we watching the same fucking game? I gotta take my sunglasses off, or like, are we in the same game? The dude's going nuts.
He's like, oh, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, the whole game. He's like, oh, like like it'll be like first down, and he's like, oh, like screaming, like the crowd does. But like nobody else in the entire fucking section is like.
The players can't hear us from up there.
Nobody's making any noise. He's just like, oh, like going nuts, and I'm just like. Okay, I get it on third down, bro. Like that's when you want to really be loud. But like that guy was just
He
giant.
would do it through the entire play though. Like it'd be like mid play,
whole
and it's
play.
like it's clear they're about to like Kansas is getting a first down, and he's like, oh, the entire.
He's living his best life, man. Leave that guy alone.
Fucking Kansas fan, or not Kansas, Oklahoma fans are terrible.
Remember that there was like this one section of like Kansas fans, like midway through the third quarter, they're like rock chalk Jayhawk. They're like the whole game they're quiet until they're like getting whooped.
The smallest section of fans I'd ever seen. Like it was like this section of a whole portion of the stands, like this much.
They were all back in Lawrence and Fall Gallon Fieldhouse watching it on the jumbotron in there.
Are you in the third quarter though? They did start getting loud. It was like a small section. They started getting loud, and I was like, okay.
There you go.
I was about to start going with them. You know, I didn't want to get beat up though. You know,
it's the first time Kansas has been good at football since like Aqib Talib was there. Think about that.
See, I did learn my lesson rooting for away fans at that fucking. Did you go to that Phillies Minnesota Wild hockey game we went to for that dude that died in New Jersey?
Oh, Carr. Yeah.
Did you go to that game?
I didn't go to that game, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we almost got beat up because I was rooting for like the Minnesota Wild in Philly.
Yeah, don't ever do that.
These people behind us were like fucking like very livid, and I was like, I don't even fucking like any of these two teams. I just hate Philly, and I was rooting for them, and they were not happy. So I don't root for opposing teams anymore.
Sure. Yeah, when we were stationed in Delaware there, that was 2015. It was actually the year that the Panthers. No, it was before that. Yeah. It was before the year before they went 15-1 and lost the Broncos. So I guess 2014 into 15, the Panthers played the Eagles in Lincoln Financial, and everybody's like, "Are you going?" I was like, "Fuck no." I was like, "Are you nuts? I'm not going to that game."
I'll get murdered.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
Believe it or not, the only NFL game I've went to was a Redskins Panthers game in DC. Remember Oregon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he bought tickets. I think it was like for him and his wife, and like she didn't want to go, so he took me, and I was like, hell yeah.
I went to a Redskins. Oh, sorry, the Commanders. But I went to a Redskins game last year when they were the Washington football team. They played the Chargers. It was the opening game, and I got pretty hooked up. So there's a dude I was stationed with at Langley. He was a tech, and he retired. And so I'm like walking through, and I had like nosebleeds. I think I paid like $80 for them, but they were way up. And walking through kind of near where the field is, right behind the field goal post. And there was this area where there's like, tables and chairs you could sit at. And I'm just walking through filming it on my phone, and I see the security guy walking up doing this. I'm like, what's this guy about? And then I pulled out my phone, and he's like, what's up, man? I was like, holy crap. And he's like, hey, where are you sitting at? And I was like, up there. He's like, not anymore. And he just opened it up. He's like, here you go. And I was like, what? So I got to sit down. It's pretty cool, man.
What a guy, man.
Yeah, great guy.
Man, that NFL game, I've never been so cold in my life. I couldn't feel my fucking feet. I was vastly unprepared for how cold it was going to be. I had zero idea. I will never go back.
Think of how cold it was in Buffalo that day.
Fuck no.
Brutal. I was in North Dakota for 5 years, so I've definitely seen that level of cold before.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anybody else got anything else to speak on? Favorite team talk?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Or anything else on each other's teams?
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think we're.
If you guys don't say FSU should be 7-0, you're fucking wrong. All right. Okay. We got coaches on the hot seat. We've had kind of the same couple guys roughly in and out since the season started. Like I mentioned earlier, we had Shane Beamer for South Carolina. They've since then picked it up, so I think he's kind of moved himself off it a little bit. We've had Mario Cristobal for Miami. He's kind of moved himself off of it. I think he could move himself back in because they're not as good as they should be. Who else that's not currently on my hot seat? What
about Brian Harsin from Auburn?
He's like the number one on my list.
Okay, yeah.
That guy was talked about being fired before the Missouri game when that dude fumbled on the goal line and they was gonna lose, and he somehow still has a job. That guy's my number one. He's probably the country's number one.
He's pretty much the only dude that I'm like for sure.
For sure.
Needs to be fired.
Yeah. Other than him, I have Marcus Freeman has made his way back onto my hot seat. They did lose to Stanford. I think they got 3 losses on the season.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. They got Marshall, Stanford, and Ohio State. Who the fuck loses to Stanford these days? Okay.
Oh, what a bad loss.
Stanford is bad. Stanford
They're
is
bad.
real bad. Also, you could probably put Stanford's fucking
Yes, he's
coach,
on the hot seat for sure.
David
Lovie
Shaw.
Smith? David Shaw. I don't know why I said Lovie Smith.
Dave Shaw, yeah.
Who the fuck? Lovie Smith was that?
He was the Bears
racist,
coach,
man.
and then he was the Texans coach. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
and Illinois
Racist.
coach. Yeah,
that guy. They remind me of each other for some reason. So, David Shaw is probably a very also good pick to put
Sure.
on here. But who?
Can I give you one that you might not be thinking of?
Oh yeah, what you got?
What about Scott Satterfield from Louisville?
Yeah,
I think we discussed him before.
Oh, did you discuss him? Okay.
Like maybe last week. But I don't know I don't watch a whole lot of ACC football, so I don't know how bad he's doing. I know they've had some disappointing games.
Yeah, this is his 4th year, and the last 2 years he's had a losing record, and this is his 4th year. So
I get losing at Syracuse. I get losing to us. Like I said, we're good. That Boston College loss is a
bad loss.
Very bad. Very, very bad. Their QB, that man is crazy good.
Yeah.
I don't know the dude's
Cunningham.
name. Yeah,
Malik Cunningham.
That guy's crazy. He's
Really
crazy.
good.
They should not have lost that game. That dude should have taken that on his back and carried them to the promised land.
So he did get hurt in the 4th quarter, 3rd or 4th quarter. So they finished the game without him, but still,
Okay.
I mean, it's Boston College. They're not good. So.
Oh, here we go. There's a little ad right here 4 days ago. Where Matt Rhule could fit. Louisville? Question mark?
I actually argued with some Louisville fans. I was, Louisville. Whenever Matt Rhule got fired, he popped up on like 10 teams like Facebook page for a potential connection to this team, and one of them was Louisville. And I got on there expecting that fans will be receptive to that, and almost 99% of them were like, "Fuck no, we don't want that guy. He's trash." And I'm like, "Are you nuts?" Like he literally took Temple to a top 25 team and had him in 10-win program 2 years in a row. Who's ever done that at Temple? Temple sucks. And then Baylor was like virtually done, and after Art Briles, and he flipped him around and took him to 11-3 and like conference championship, played for a conference championship, played for the Sugar Bowl. Like I'm like, he's a great college coach, man.
And like I said, you can't even knock him for the fucking Carolina like team. Like that team is just not good. Like there's not a lot there. Like you got
Nick Saban sucked in the pros, you know.
Yeah, you got Christian McCaffrey, and that's really it. DJ Moore on the offense. That's it. No QB, nothing. No O line. Defense is kind of ass.
You're right.
Like you can't even really fault him for the lack of success he's got going on. They just didn't give enough time. He's not getting time to draft who he wants to get. Not his fault. So I would love to have him on my team. If I was on a team that had a mediocre coach and I'm a decent mid-range to high-level school, I'm firing whoever the fuck I got, and I'm bringing Matt Rhule in.
I think he should go to Nebraska. I think that'd be just a good chance for him to rebuild his name.
Wisconsin's another team linked to him.
I know Colorado, they've kind of showed that a little bit. Like
Colorado being back would be sweet.
That would be sweet.
That would be very sweet. I like Colorado. But yeah, Louisville's fucked with this schedule. They are done. They got Pitt, Wake Forest, James Madison will probably beat them, Clemson, NC State, if their backup gets his bearings, and then Kentucky. Like that's a terrible, terrible schedule.
They could lose every single one of those games.
They could. Backloaded for sure.
They might have one of the worst schedules in the country for like their roster. If you can kind of equate it, like I mean, if you're looking at it, it's not the worst schedule. Looking at some SEC teams, but based on what they got going on, it's not looking good.
Not looking good at all.
That man's definitely on the list.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anybody else got any outliers?
I mean, I don't think I really have anybody too high on my list. I would say Marcus Freeman probably wouldn't be on my list. I think he's in a winnable situation where, it's his first year. I don't know the LSU Notre Dame situation, as well as I know like the Oklahoma USC situation. So I don't know how much Brian Kelly took with him.
I don't think he took a
what
whole
pieces
lot.
he stole. Did he steal any staff? I mean, I think Freeman has shown like signs of being a good coach, and I think, you know, if they're still this bad come around next year, I would say maybe I'd have him on my hot seat. But I think he deserves at least another year.
Sure, definitely.
Looking at the schedule, they're a 6-loss team easy. They're losing to USC most likely, losing to Clemson most likely. I think Syracuse is probably going to beat them. So that's a 6-loss team. It's more so whether or not the boosters, because they control that team.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether or not they're happy with what kind of adjustments he's making. Is he doing enough to change the team?
Well, I think if he gets an upset against, I would say the Syracuse, they probably wouldn't value that much really, because Syracuse isn't that big of a name.
I would value that. If they lose to Clemson, if they lose to Clemson this weekend, it won't be valued as much because they're not going to be ranked. They'll probably drop out. If they beat Clemson this week, they'll be top 10 team. If they can beat Clemson, he's solid. He's money. But
yeah, I mean, I think the Clemson would be big. I think the USC at the very end of the year, like realistically, USC could be like on the verge of getting back into the playoff hunt. At that point, let's say they went out to that point, that could be a huge win for Notre Dame, kind of spoiling their season.
I feel like Notre Dame and USC is kind of like an underrated rivalry. I know they don't play a lot, but it's kind of underrated. There's a lot of history in those two schools, and they've had really big like marquee matchups when they have played. Like I said, I don't know how often they play each other, but it's not super often. But when they do, it's pretty heavy consequences. Really good games. I hope Notre Dame wins because I hate USC. I just don't like USC's program. It's cool to see them back in the spotlight, but
yeah, it's good for football, but it's still annoying.
It is good for college football, but man, I just don't like USC for some reason. They did my man Reggie Bush. They did my man Reggie Bush dirty.
They did.
All right, comeback performance of the week. I know
OU.
I'll go into mine because I feel like mine's the only one different.
I got OU in Utah.
I got Colorado. They got their first win of the year against Cal.
There you go.
I thought it was kind of crazy.
They beat Cal, huh?
Yeah, Cal's like 3. They were 3-2 as well.
What, the Colorado Avalanche?
You said what?
The Colorado Avalanche?
I know, right?
I know you're not talking about the college football team.
No, the Buffs did it, man.
Oh, shit, they did.
They brought back Cordell Stewart.
Sheesh. In overtime.
I mean, look at the way they're getting beat in all these other games. Like, I mean, I think it's just crazy that they could even win a game at this point.
Like, holy shit, bad. Did they rush the field? No, they did. They stormed the field.
Hey, real quick on storming the field, can we talk about Georgia Southern storming the field against JMU? I understand JMU is ranked, but they were in FCS last year. Like, what are you doing, man? Okay,
I'm storming the field.
You're storming the field?
They're a ranked FBS team. I'm storming the field.
Colorado, another one of those obscure Power 5 teams. We talked about Illinois earlier. Colorado, I forget that team exists all the time.
Yeah,
I like Colorado. They've had like really great players come out of Colorado.
Oh, sure, they absolutely have.
And they've had some good seasons back when they were in like the Big 12. They were like making the Big 12
1990
quite often.
1990, they were gangster.
How the mighty have fallen. It's just sad to see. I like the team. The mascot's cool. Like it's a cool team.
Yeah, it's a real mascot. It's awesome.
That stadium's kind of badass. Like
colors are solid.
You're in Colorado. Like what can you not like about Colorado? The schedule's it's a solid schedule, but they got TCU, which was ranked now, not at the time. They got beat down. Air Force, solid, decently.
Yeah, Air Force ain't bad. Air Force 5-2, I think.
Minnesota was good early in the season. UCLA is top 10 in the country now. Arizona's terrible. Cal's terrible. Oregon State, terrible. Arizona State, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You see what they did to Herm Edwards?
Oh man, so crazy.
How you gonna do that to
in the end zone? In the end zone.
And as soon as the game ends, how you gonna do that to man? Yeah. And then you got 3 ranked teams out of the 4 last games you play, and Washington should be a ranked team. Like,
He's a legend. You can't do that to him like that.
no, absolutely not. You do that off camera in your office. I would sue.
Yeah,
I don't care if I lose, but I'm taking your ass to court
sure.
for grievances against my character or something like that. Something asked just out of left field. I will find a lawyer that will take it just because I'm petty.
That was so wrong.
But yeah, Colorado, that's kind of a tough schedule. I mean, if you really
It is a
look at
tough schedule for sure.
I would not want that schedule as a fan.
No. But yeah, I mean, that's who I had just because like they were just so bad this year, and then they finally get a win. I mean, I could have put OU, but like I don't want to be a homer.
You should.
Plus, I feel like we're better than we portrayed the past few weeks. So to me, it's not as surprising, I think, as it was to a lot of people.
Sure, it should never be surprising for OU to win at home against Kansas, but
absolutely
here we are.
And you guys only won by 10 too. You guys were up by like 20 at one point.
Well, the game wasn't as close as the final score, to be fair. So
they lit up some points there at the end, some garbage time after we left. All right, I guess we'll cut our episode